Chapter 18. But how are we going to convince her to do what we ask of her? Your reputation for being a traitor can even make a woman you keep calling Tsunade-sama unwilling to heal you. Kabuto brought up, this could be my answer to why Orochimaru is being so short-minded. Because she once had a brother and a fiancé, both I can easily bring back and she will have no choice but to do what I say. Orochimaru had the biggest grin on his face. Kabuto, for once, had his eyes open in surprise. But that will mean that we will have to tell her that they are still dead. We already failed at using the Kuchios, Edo Tensei, and you are still below half your full chakra reserves. Can you actually pull this off? Kabuto was still the doctor, and things like this are not to be ignored by doctors. Shut up. She will heal me, and that is final because I said so. Kabuto, you are trending on thin ice, and I will have to kill you myself if you get too far. Orochimaru hissed at his medic and limped down the hall like an old man, refusing to show his weakness because of his pride. Kabuto was not amused or stirred by the threat. You really are losing your touch. I may have felt worse from you before the Chunin exams, but you are growing old and frail. He can actually scare me, not you. Not anymore. Kabuto glared behind the shadows before joining Orochimaru again, but he was prepared and with a scalpel hidden from sight under his clothes and from Orochimaru with his chakra. It is scary what an inventive genius and an unlimited supply of energy could do when you mix them up. And so, Jiraiya had led the newly promoted Chunin through various casinos and bars, but Tsunade wasn't there. At least they were able to get a good lead because the last stop happened to have Tsunade, and that lady was so drunk that the owner of the bar actually heard them talking about where they were going. But it was getting dark, so it was time to turn in. Jiraiya said that he was going to some meeting with some of his spy network, but Naruto and the girls knew better. Still, they said nothing because they knew that he will be back heartbroken once again, and also that they have something that was occupying them as of this very moment. There, Naruto's room was one that he had to share with the girls, all because Jiraiya was not only a perverted old man, but he was the stereotypical stingy perverted old man as well. So that single room all to the kids, and one for himself and his company, was what happened at that hotel. Inside, we love you, Naruto-kun. You are the best little brother. Ah, thanks, girls. Naruto had gotten lucky with both the bars and the casinos because every time, he will nearly gamble the casino owners out of business, and that he was able to get Jiraiya out of trouble by smooth-talking the girls into showing him all the best parts about the cities. The girls didn't mind because those whores and hit girls were actually ones with good taste and introduced the girls to all the fashion, clothing, and jewelry stores that Naruto was able to afford with plenty left to spare. Poor Jiraiya was always left sulking in the corner, where he was anyway grateful that he didn't get pounded by offended girls and jealous boyfriends or husbands. No one told him that even Kunoichi have this job. Right now the girls were now trying out their new clothes, and what is new is that they don't care if there was a bathroom for trying on dresses. Naruto didn't mind them changing in the same room as him. He just hoped that Jiraiya doesn't know and tried to get the same lucky peek under their clothes as Naruto himself. But there was these budge in his pants that just won't go limp or get smaller for the girls' comfort. Naruto just crossed his legs hoping that the girls won't notice and feel like they are being ogled by their own boyfriend/younger brother. To do that, Naruto was actually half-looking hoping that if he didn't have a full view, he might bore out his restless member. Too bad that made him fail to notice on how the girls were not only not minding a boy in their presence as they changed even their underpants. The feeling of being so free was actually making them all horny. It has been well over a month since Hinata and Sakura had their fun with Naruto, and the inch was killing them. Haku even felt that way too, since she always heard it from the two girls every time she was allowed to take a small break from her job. How about we do it again, but this time, Haku will join us? Hinata brought up thanks to her newly found confidence. Sakura was neutral since she wanted to do something with Naruto no matter what it was, but Haku is still single and hasn't even found the right boy for her to lose her virginity to. But how can they do it when they are siblings? Sakura said until Haku started to giggle perversely. Hey, even women can feel the same sexual desires as men. I always wanted someone like him, like a little brother, but if we did do it, we will be in no danger of breaking laws. After all, the only thing missing about us being siblings is that we share the same bloodline. Haku said, and I have to blame you girls for finally getting me horny, and I can't stand it. I want to feel what you girls did while I was in my own room in Konoha, missing out the fun. Hinata and Sakura blushed, remembering that they indeed had fun with Naruto when they were among the first to arrive at the tower in the Forest of Death of the first day of the second exam. Are you girls done with changing? We could sure use some sleep right about now. All of the kunoichi then heard the voice of the very boy they were talking about, and after looking out a window, they saw that it was the very early hours of nightfall. But sleeping was not what they had in mind, and they turned to face Naruto, half looking in a cute and noble attempt way to stop himself from being a pervert. They smirked and took out any garment they were wearing and closed all the shutters and locked all the doors, leaving Naruto all alone in a locked and closed-off room with 3 horny and nude kunoichi. They walked over to the blonde who had moved from that spot on one of the beds inside the room and kissed him with passion. Girls, wa? Naruto was really taken by surprise but soon lost it and kissed his girlfriend's back as well. But that turning on had vanished when Haku kissed him on the lips, which shocked him. Haku? Sorry Naruto-kun, but I can't take it anymore. I don't want to stay a virgin all because I chose you to take my virginity and I am your older sister. I don't want to live like this anymore. Please let me enjoy you like the girls do. Haku said, and there was pure discomfort and longing so clear that it was clear within her eyes to even a blind man. Naruto then kissed Haku square on the lips, which blew away her strength like a leaf in a sudden gust of wind. She then found the strength to hug Naruto and kissed him back. Lemon begins. So girls, Haku needs to lose it all and I can't leave you all out of the fun. Would you help me? Naruto was like the well-behaved little boy asking of an adult in a perverse style. He didn't get spoken words as an answer, but when Sakura and Hinata started to grope at Haku while Naruto handled the kissing, that was enough for him. Hey. Haku was enjoying it when Hinata got a little too bold and tackled a sensitive side when Haku had to lower her guard down, which caused a spike in sexual pleasure. Sakura giggled and placed her hand where Hinata's was, at the area directly above the opening of the vagina. It is always sensitive there, either to make out or to masturbate. I am gonna, Haku muttered until she let out a climax right into the hands of the girls helping out their soul man handle this virgin. Please. That was a major turn on, and Sakura took the first turn of actually using her woman-shaped hand to pierce the vagina, while Hinata felt a little need for some female domination and had Haku lick and suck the climax juice off of the lavender heiress's fingers. But that meant Haku couldn't enjoy Naruto anymore on her lips since both girls were feeling her up. But he wasn't going to let himself get left out on the fun. Hinata, take this, Naruto said in a lowly but sexy voice, and Barley gave the dominating heiress enough time to prepare for a sudden penetration. Hinata groaned as she felt the most wonderful pain in her life returning to surge all through her body. Then she felt none of the pussy juice on her fingers and removed them from Haku's mouth, just in time for Sakura to get off, inserting her entire hand into Haku's pussy and kissed her in order to use up that pent-up horny energy. Now Haku was seeing Hinata be the lucky one to feel Naruto's dick into her pussy. She was about to ask how Sakura is not bothered until she saw another blonde sneaking up on the pink-haired kunoichi, who was licking at the pussy juice on her hands until she moaned sharply and sexy when that clone shoved its member as big as the original's up Sakura's own pussy. This was so exciting and sexy that Haku was starting to feel a little frightened. She could just imagine how good it felt for both experienced girls to feel a boy's dick up their asses. Then she felt a pair of hands on her shoulders and saw a third blonde behind her as well. Don't be afraid, Haku-chan. Even the horniest women get a little rattled before losing their virginity. That is why I let my personal clones take care of my girlfriends, while I will give you the best for the one that has yet to be no longer a virgin. Why, you are the real one, Haku said in her exhaustion from feeling both a sudden burst of energy that came and went just as fast, making her feel nearly all tired. The real Naruto nodded and took Haku to the other bed while Hinata and Sakura enjoyed the attention the clones were giving them and even themselves. Haku just couldn't put their eyes off of them while Naruto explored her exposed and beautiful body. It sent pleasurable shivers down her spine as she enjoyed being vulnerable in hands of the man she trusted with her virginity. SSH. Don't speak, you will need all that energy to enjoy riding to heaven and riding all the way back. I will make it all worth it, Naruto said smoothly into Haku's ear, and Haku couldn't protect herself from being so horny that she was starting to twitch and itch at her pussy. Naruto must have noticed because before Haku could try to scratch the itch, she was lifted with her pussy directly above Naruto's erect and hardcore dick. Haku drooled at how strong and solid it looked even and braced herself for penetration. Here we go, and keep your eyes closed. You will enjoy it better than ever until we get better and stronger. You will love what the muscles between our legs can pleasure us, Naruto said, and Haku didn't have the energy to even open her eyes, and she lost her focus and let the tension in her body left for the ultimate, mind-blowing pleasure. It hit her harder than a steel bag of bricks and iron, and Haku shivered worse than when she was trying to stay warm in the cold country of her long-lost homeland. She just couldn't wrap her head around all that pleasure that came at here without warning and without much holding back. She could just feel all of her sensitive nerve cells going into overdrive and her legs turned to lead. Haku turned to Naruto, who seemed to be enjoying her tight and virgin pussy as much as she was enjoying it pierced with a spear of a dick. With her eyes, she told Naruto on how she couldn't move her legs. Naruto smirked with a perverted grin that didn't even scare Haku but filled her with more sexual excitement and anticipation for more of this pleasurable pain. Naruto grabbed her hips where it felt the best under his magical touch that Haku felt while Naruto handled her gently to get her time to recover from that sudden outburst that nearly left her numb. Soon Haku realized that she felt a lot better and was ready to take the real heat. She signaled Naruto by making a disappointment moan which successfully got the blonde to speed it up until every push was as pleasurable as it can possibly be. Haku couldn't take all it in and released a climax several times and Naruto was still going strong. She could just feel the budging dick well in her pussy, pulsing against her sensitive pussy walls. "Alright Haku, here comes our own climax and we have saved it the entire time, so take it," Naruto said, and before Haku could say a word, she moaned when she was pulled until Naruto's entire dick was in her pussy. She then felt something race and rocket through it and hit her womb hard. Haku felt like she was filled to the brim and that was it. She couldn't handle another makeout session if Naruto can hold in his climax after she released so many of her own. Maybe being the girl with the right to be fucked by a boy like Naruto will be something that will be just perfect for Haku after all. Lemon ends. That was fun, girls. Even you were amazing, Haku-chan? Naruto said that last part in hesitation in order to give the said girl the chance to see what his only worry was about. She just kissed him on the cheek. "Call me what you will like, and I enjoyed losing my virginity to you too. Now I feel even safer and more secure. Please let me in the family when it is time, Naruto-kun," Haku said coolly, and Naruto blushed but didn't protest. He just let a strong-willed girl like Haku and his own big sister do what she wanted. She was a big girl after all. "I will keep the seat warm until then." Naruto then drifted off, going to sleep with his girlfriends, cuddling with his arms nude like an undressed little girl hugging her teddy bear as the only source of warmth. "I know you will, Naruto-kun. You may be our slave, but I never seen one like you before. You might actually make us your slaves. Oh well, trying to have the perfect life between man and women is very complicated," Haku said and nodded off on Naruto's chest. She didn't care if it reeked of sweat to the point of being covered in it. Somehow it was enough to make her fall asleep comfortable all the same. That very night, the hotel where the make session had taken place was being watched so hard that it was reflected on the eyes of some strangers in black while wearing rain hats. Then the light from the moon glazed along the ground like a snake until it reached their faces and showed their appearances perfectly. "Is this where this brat with the dual bloodlines is supposed to be found?" said Kisame Hashigaki, who was a very tall, muscular shinobi and was the tallest member in Akatsuki. He had a distinctive shark-like appearance. He also has small, round, white eyes, gill-like facial markings under his eyes, and actual gills on his shoulders and sharp triangular teeth, much like the other members of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Shishininshu. He also styled his blue hair in the form of a shark fin. As a member of Akatsuki, he also wore dark purple nail polish. He also switched to a modified version of Kirigakure's forehead protector, which covered his ears as well. After defecting from the village, he donned the typical cloak members of Akatsuki wore, and underneath it he was bare-chested. He also wore a brown sash across the front and back of his cloak to hold his sword, Samahata, in place. He wore his Akatsuki ring on his left ring finger, bearing the kanji for south, which was yellow in color. Yes, our leader wants his prisoner and the boy rubbed out for good. And we are the strongest under him, so we must not fail. Right next to Kisame is his partner Itachi Uchiha, formerly of Konoha. Itachi had onyx eyes under which were long, pronounced tear troughs. He had jet black hair that was pulled back in a low ponytail, and his face was framed with center-parted bangs that extended to his chin. The ponytail and bangs grow longer over the years. His overall appearance is very similar to Sasuke's. As a member of Akatsuki, he wore the standard Akatsuki cloak and a slashed Konoha forehead protector to symbolize his broken ties with the village. The cloak's high collar would obscure his ponytail. He would sometimes unbutton his cloak to mid-chest and rest his left arm there, rather than in the sleeve. Under his cloak he wore clothes similar to the rest of Akatsuki. Mesh armor with navy accents under an identical t-shirt with a simple white belt around the waist and dark blue pants. On his right ring finger was his Akatsuki ring, which was red and bore the kanji for vermilion. He wore purple nail polish on his fingers and toes and a necklace that had 3 silver rings with red gems inside them. How about you go for the Kyubi while I do the legs? I hate prey that can run away pretty fast, Kisame said in a sadist and bloodthirsty way. The Samahata on his back started to growl and twitch, as if it too was hungry for flesh meat. Do what you want when the time is right, Kisame. For now we must wait until no one is around and awake. We are ninjas after all. Itachi muttered and got relaxed into a patient stance while ignoring the disappointed groans from Kisame. Later that very next day, they sprang into action. They walked through the morning staff, acting like guests from a foreign country and that their outfits are standard issue. With Itachi's special eyes that could tell the difference between civilian and shinobi and the difference between the significance among the shinobi based on the chakra signatures, they were able to find the right floor and section where Naruto can be found. Knocking on the door like regular visitors, Itachi and Kisame waited for Naruto to open the door, but instead they found it to be left open. When they arrived in the room, it was like the room was never even touched. Itachi was frustrated that he somehow had gotten the doors wrong and slammed it shut, but it opened again. Are you the ones who want me? Naruto said after answering the door to see 2 tall and dark strangers all wearing cloaks he never seen before, and one of these strangers looked like Sasuke, only older. They were shocked and even showed it a little before trying to hide it from Naruto. Showing surprise to an enemy shinobi is the same as giving your assassin the chance to take a swipe at your neck. I thought you said that this brat doesn't know about us, Itachi. What is the big deal? Kisame said as he peered over Itachi's shoulder. He is not. How did you know about our group, Naruto-kun? Naruto himself sneered and snorted. Please, strangers don't get to call me that, and what is this about you being part of a group? You are not involved with drugs, are you? They are really bad for you. Naruto taunted and acted like a kid scolding a very naughty adult. Itachi didn't know what to think of Naruto, but Kisame did, and rolling on the ground was merely the result. That kid's is all right in the head. He is staring you down and scolding you without as much as a hint of fear in his voice. You really are losing your touch, Itachi. Kisame bellowed while Naruto noticed that while his chakra was slowly leaking out to form a sensing aura, his chakra was being drawn to that huge and scaly sword Samahata on Kisame's back. Here you go, Naruto said as he approached the sword and brought out some much of his seemingly limitless chakra for Samahata to eat. Immediately Kisame stopped laughing after hearing all this happening, and Samahata acted like it was enjoying the taste of Naruto's chakra, and now it wants more. Samahata might want to go to Naruto soon or later if the blonde kept this up. But all that was forgotten when Itachi finally got his smirk back and said something that was setting off some kind of time bomb with all the tension in the atmosphere that was born from this. So you have finally revealed your face. Ha, Sasuke. Naruto groaned and faced the same direction as Itachi to see a very familiar traitorous boy on the run. Itachi, you are here and I have finally did it. I have hated you from the very start, and that had gotten me all this power. Sasuke said, almost like he practiced for all this. What a perfectionist of a selfish traitor. To kill you. As soon as Sasuke clutched the wrist of his right hand with his left hand, it started to glow nearly as bright as pure light until one can see a blade of lightning. Raikiri? Last time I heard you were going to learn the Chidori since your teacher was the genius Kakashi Hatake. Itachi remarked as Sasuke foolishly charged towards Itachi, wide open, thinking that with his Raikiri clawing at the wall was enough to beat his big brother, the clan killer turned traitor. He was no more wrong, as Naruto was right when Itachi had enough time to ready himself to take in the pain done by the Raiten Jutsu, but ultimately stopped the S-rank assassination technique from killing him. Stupid little brother. You claimed to become stronger, but instead you humiliated yourself, and now I will have to kill you. Itachi said coolly until his senses kicked in, and just in time to dodge a stream of boiling hot water from hitting his eyes. That got Itachi to kick Sasuke hard in the dormant arm and launched him far into the hallway and out of the action. I have seen why you will be the perfect duo for capturing Kakagais, Naruto said as he maintained his stream of heated water while somehow was able to speak clearly all the same. You, Itachi Uchiha, can use your Sharingan to take control over her like another one of you traitors did on the day I was born, while Kisame will drain Kaka of her essence and make her weak. But not today, guys, or ever are you going to take Kaka away from me. Naruto then moved his hands in another seal, and the stream of boiling water suddenly turning into that of a garden hose spray and covered the entire hallway in front of him in water so hot it was about to turn to vapor. Arg! You are getting rather annoying, brat, Kisame said while trying to avoid the worst of this water that may not harm him much. Was the heated water was like an acid that will eat away anything at a slowly but surely rate. That sword of yours eats away chakra, my chakra, and I don't like it. But all this time I had been leaking my chakra outside my body. It has been eaten. It is the same as trying to eat a sandwich while still in the lunch pail compared to when it is outside and on a napkin. Naruto said, surprising those two once again and temporary once again. They soon turned serious when Naruto did. I am not going to let you eat away my chakra. Naruto's body then slowly started to heat up and had steam emerged from his pores. It was so strong and concentrated on that spot, the floor started to crack to the sheer pressure. And this is why I am keeping my chakra, Naruto said before his mouth swelled up again with steam emerging from the space between his lips this time. I am keeping my chakra to myself. That very night, the hotel where the make session had taken place was being watched so hard that it was reflected on the eyes of some strangers in black while wearing rain hats. Then the light from the moon glazed along the ground like a snake until it reached their faces and showed their appearances perfectly. Is this where this brat with the dual bloodlines is supposed to be found? Said Kisame Hashigaki, who was a very tall, muscular shinobi, and was the tallest member in Akatsuki. He had a distinctive shark-like appearance. He also has small, round, white eyes, gill-like facial markings under his eyes, and actual gills on his shoulders and sharp triangular teeth, much like the other members of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Shishininshu. He also styled his blue hair in the form of a shark fin. As a member of Akatsuki, he also wore dark purple nail polish. He also switched to a modified version of Kirigakure's forehead protector, which covered his ears as well. After defecting from the village, he donned the typical cloak members of Akatsuki wore, and underneath it he was bare-chested. He also wore a brown sash across the front and back of his cloak to hold his sword, Samahata, in place. He wore his Akatsuki ring on his left ring finger, bearing the kanji for south, which was yellow in color. Yes, our leader wants his prisoner and the boy rubbed out for good. And we are the strongest under him, so we must not fail. Right next to Kisame is his partner Itachi Uchiha, formerly of Konoha. Itachi had onyx eyes under which were long, pronounced tear troughs. He had jet black hair that was pulled back in a low ponytail, and his face was framed with center-parted bangs that extended to his chin. The ponytail and bangs grow longer over the years. His overall appearance is very similar to Sasuke's. As a member of Akatsuki, he wore the standard Akatsuki cloak and a slashed Konoha forehead protector to symbolize his broken ties with the village. The cloak's high collar would obscure his ponytail. He would sometimes unbutton his cloak to mid-chest and rest his left arm there, rather than in the sleeve. Under his cloak he wore clothes similar to the rest of Akatsuki. Mesh armor with navy accents under an identical t-shirt with a simple white belt around the waist and dark blue pants. On his right ring finger was his Akatsuki ring, which was red and bore the kanji for vermilion. He wore purple nail polish on his fingers and toes and a necklace that had 3 silver rings with red gems inside them. How about you go for the Kyubi while I do the legs? I hate prey that can run away pretty fast, Kisame said in a sadist and blood-thirsty way. The Samahata on his back started to growl and twitch, as if it too was hungry for flesh meat. Do what you want when the time is right, Kisame. For now we must wait until no one is around and awake. We are ninjas after all. Itachi muttered and got relaxed into a patient stance while ignoring the disappointed groans from Kisame. Later that very next day, they sprang into action. They walked through the morning staff, acting like guests from a foreign country and that their outfits are standard issue. With Itachi's special eyes that could tell the difference between civilian and shinobi and the difference between the significance among the shinobi based on the chakra signatures, they were able to find the right floor and section where Naruto can be found. Knocking on the door like regular visitors, Itachi and Kisame waited for Naruto to open the door, but instead they found it to be left open. When they arrived in the room, it was like the room was never even touched. Itachi was frustrated that he somehow had gotten the doors wrong and slammed it shut, but it opened again. Are you the ones who want me? Naruto said after answering the door to see 2 tall and dark strangers all wearing cloaks he never seen before, and one of these strangers looked like Sasuke, only older. They were shocked and even showed it a little before trying to hide it from Naruto. Showing surprise to an enemy shinobi is the same as giving your assassin the chance to take a swipe at your neck. I thought you said that this brat doesn't know about us, Itachi. What is the big deal? Kisame said as he peered over Itachi's shoulder. He is not. How did you know about our group, Naruto-kun? Naruto himself sneered and snorted. Please, strangers don't get to call me that, and what is this about you being part of a group? You are not involved with drugs, are you? They are really bad for you. Naruto taunted and acted like a kid scolding a very naughty adult. Itachi didn't know what to think of Naruto, but Kisame did, and rolling on the ground was merely the result. That kid's is all right in the head. He is staring you down and scolding you without as much as a hint of fear in his voice. You really are losing your touch, Itachi. Kisame bellowed while Naruto noticed that while his chakra was slowly leaking out to form a sensing aura, his chakra was being drawn to that huge and scaly sword Samehada on Kisame's back. Here you go, Naruto said as he approached the sword and brought out some much of his seemingly limitless chakra for Samehada to eat. Immediately Kisame stopped laughing after hearing all this happening, and Samehada acted like it was enjoying the taste of Naruto's chakra, and now it wants more. Samehada might want to go to Naruto soon or later if the blonde kept this up. But all that was forgotten when Itachi finally got his smirk back and said something that was setting off some kind of time bomb with all the tension in the atmosphere that was born from this. So you have finally revealed your face. Ha, Sasuke. Naruto groaned and faced the same direction as Itachi to see a very familiar traitorous boy on the run. Itachi, you are here and I have finally did it. I have hated you from the very start, and that had gotten me all this power. Sasuke said, almost like he practiced for all this. What a perfectionist of a selfish traitor. To kill you. As soon as Sasuke clutched the wrist of his right hand with his left hand, it started to glow nearly as bright as pure light until one can see a blade of lightning. Raikiri? Last time I heard you were going to learn the Chidori since your teacher was the genius Kakashi Hatake. Itachi remarked as Sasuke foolishly charged towards Itachi, wide open, thinking that with his Raikiri clawing at the wall was enough to beat his big brother, the clan killer turned traitor. He was no more wrong, as Naruto was right when Itachi had enough time to ready himself to take in the pain done by the Raiten Jutsu, but ultimately stopped the S-rank assassination technique from killing him. Stupid little brother. You claimed to become stronger, but instead you humiliated yourself, and now I will have to kill you. Itachi said coolly until his senses kicked in, and just in time to dodge a stream of boiling hot water from hitting his eyes. That got Itachi to kick Sasuke hard in the dormant arm and launched him far into the hallway and out of the action. I have seen why you will be the perfect duo for capturing Kakagais, Naruto said as he maintained his stream of heated water while somehow was able to speak clearly all the same. You, Itachi Uchiha, can use your Sharingan to take control over her like another one of you traitors did on the day I was born, while Kisame will drain Kaka of her essence and make her weak. But not today, guys, or ever are you going to take Kaka away from me. Naruto then moved his hands in another seal, and the stream of boiling water suddenly turning into that of a garden hose spray and covered the entire hallway in front of him in water so hot it was about to turn to vapor. Arg! You are getting rather annoying, brat, Kisame said while trying to avoid the worst of this water that may not harm him much. Was the heated water was like an acid that will eat away anything at a slowly but surely rate. That sword of yours eats away chakra, my chakra, and I don't like it. But all this time I had been leaking my chakra outside my body. It has been eaten. It is the same as trying to eat a sandwich while still in the lunch pail compared to when it is outside and on a napkin, Naruto said, surprising those two once again and temporary once again. They soon turned serious when Naruto did. I am not going to let you eat away my chakra. Naruto's body then slowly started to heat up and had steam emerged from his pores. It was so strong and concentrated on that spot, the floor started to crack to the sheer pressure. And this is why I am keeping my chakra, Naruto said before his mouth swelled up again with steam emerging from the space between his lips this time. I am keeping my chakra to myself. On the other side of town, three figures were approaching the direction of the hotel where all this is happening. For the last time, Mizuki-sama, what are we doing out here? We should be in Kiri doing our duties, and are you sure they can run themselves? Said one of Mei Terumi's bodyguards. He was a middle-aged man with blue hair which is styled in a moosed-up manner. His left eye was blue and his right eye was covered with an eye patch. He wore a talisman in each ear with the kanji for a humble form of to hear written on them twice on each side. He also wore the standard striped, gray suit with a green haori that had white trimmings that stop halfway down over them. He was a Kirigakure Jonin and a respected veteran that fought even in the Bloodline massacre that Mei had put to a stop and became Mizukage as a result. I think that Mei-sama H has a G good R reason TT to be O out of H here. The other bodyguard was even worse than Hinata back in the days of having a crush on Naruto back in the academy and before the wave mission. Chojuro, one of the disbanded Kiri no Shinobigatana Shishinin Shu. Chojuro has short, tufty blue hair and dark eyes. He also has pointed, shark-like teeth. a common trait of the members of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Shishinin Shu as well as apprentices share. He wears square, black-rimmed glasses connected to ear protectors, a blue pinstriped shirt and camouflage pattern pants. Also, he wears his forehead protector on the front of his holster, which he uses to carry Hiramakarei, his dual-handle sword. The sword itself is wrapped in bandages, leaving only the double hilt visible. He also has shuriken holsters strapped onto each of his legs. Bah! Whatever. Let's just get this all over with. Oh grumbled until he started to scold Chojuro. I swear that kids want to be some kind of maid to women until they get old and can't be parents. Old maid. Mei thought of dangerously in her head. She said nothing as Ao continued to yell at Chojuro. And I can't believe that I have to pull you kids off of women with some of wrench. There is lots of girls your own age, Chojuro, and they are not the wrong ones to date and get married. Wretch? Wrong age to marry? Mei thought of the wrong words in the wrong order again as her form got more and more stiff and her eyes were completely covered in black. While she started to ignore Ao's ranting, she just whispered in his ear, Ao? Shut up or I will kill you, she said with a smile so innocent and so cherry it scared Ao. What did I do? Ao said without a clue as to why his Mizukage threatened to kill him. Anyway, you two, we are out here because I was told by Sarutobidano that he is retiring for good and he already chosen his successor, Tsunade the Slug Sannin. I was also told that Naruto Uzumaki was out of here looking for her too. Mei got serious and her bodyguards nodded. I want to meet both Naruto and Tsunade for my own personal reasons. But let's just say that while there are plenty of Yotan users like me and Rashi of IWA, but I always thought that I was the only user of Futton. He proved me wrong, and I am not going to throw away this chance to start a new clan of Futton users in this nation. I don't care which village shelters them or if I will have to offer myself to him but Naruto, and I will not be the only users of Futton in the world. Meanwhile, Sasuke dragged his hurt body with his shattered arm down the hall as Naruto tried to fend off his older brother and his partner until help could arrive. He was just drowning in hatred at the blonde for taking away his revenge. Sasuke just doesn't let anything go that easily, even if it meant turning him into a homicidal traitor. What is going out here? Sasuke turned and saw something that made him smirk, like he had discovered something that he was searching for, and so soon. But all that was blacked out, and we now see Kisame trying to stop this blonde on a rampage with Samahata, and yet he was still getting hit where it really hurt. Damn it! Taijutsu and Nin Taijutsu are the few things that Samahata can't absorb. This brat is something or a threat more than a nuisance and an annoyance. Kisame tried to tell his side of the story to Itachi, who was leaning on one of the hotel walls with plenty of burns eating at his skin. Indeed, Kisame, and I am not sure if Naruto-kun knows this, but it seems that he had learned how to use this power over boiling water and steam to replicate a ninjutsu that Han of IWA and holder of the Gobi used according to our members. Itachi thought in his head, since even speaking was somehow a chore for this S-rank rogue shinobi. Han called it the Futton, Kairiki Muso, and also that he was the only use of this Futton. He must never have heard of the Godame Mizukage. And she mustn't have either. As Itachi tried to think about all this, Naruto was having his own thoughts that he kept no secret in his excitement. Thanks for bringing me over the top, Kisame. I feel like I can shatter rock with my punches now. I just don't know what to call it, but I think that this form should have a name. Naruto said causally as he ignored the pain in his hands while punching the sword covered in scales. That's it. Naruto shouted and landed a right jab to Kisame's face, sending the shark shinobi into a distance before his head started to dig into the hard floor to stop the rest of his body. I think I will call this Futton. Itachi was the only one in disbelief since Kisame was too busy with rocks in his ears trying to get his head out of the floor of the hotel hallway. Just what is this brat? Not only is he considered a threat by Leader-sama, but he is still childish. Itachi would have written more notes down mentally when he felt an incredible pain that was like some was hitting a fresh wound. Of course I can't forget about you, Itachi, and since you are Sasuke's older brother, I figured that you deserved to get a good feel of what he did to all of yous twice. Naruto said with a dark tone, and Itachi actually screamed when he felt his deep bruise being soaked in boiling water. Relax, Itachi. I am just trying to fix you up and I need to close the exit door when I am done. I can't have you die from this illness because everyone's suffering at Sasuke's traitorous hands will be for nothing. Nothing but empty memories. Itachi had no way of knowing if Naruto was merely being a sadist or was actually knowing what he was doing. After a couple of minutes, Naruto pulled his hand out forcefully, leaving behind indeed a stab wound that was closing up with the help of the burn. Itachi tried to get up from that pain only to realize that he was able to get back onto his feet easily and his vision was becoming clearer. Now only use those forbidden eyes unless there is a real good reason to. That means if you keep abusing that power of yours, you will need glasses. Doctor's orders. Naruto started to do his childish approach to his enemies, and then reactivated his Futon again just in time to dodge a swipe and a jab from Itachi, only much faster and stronger despite the fact it was coming from a shinobi who was more like a specialist in ninjutsu rather than taijutsu. The two braced for another match-off while Kisame finally got his head back into the air above the dirt until, "Who awoke me from my nap? Where are you, brat? The Akatsuki are this way, Mizukage-sama." Itachi knew the first two voices and figured out what the third was addressing. Real trouble was coming and now Itachi thought it over. They have delayed a little too much and they need to leave before they blow their cover. "Kisame, we can no longer take Naruto-kun. We need to retreat." "Yeah, against Jiraiya and the Mizukage, I will prefer to fight someone else than them any day," Kisame said, and they fled when they realized their target wasn't in their sights anymore. Unfortunately for them, that last brief moment of hesitation had allowed the sources of the voices to find them. It was Jiraiya the Toad Sage, Tsunade the Slug Sage, and Mei the Godame Mizukage and her bodyguards. "It's the Akatsuki," Jiraiya yelled and formed hand seals. "I won't let you escape again. Kuchios, Gamaguchi Shirbari." The corridor turned into that of a toad's mouth, and not just any toad, a fire-breathing one. And as such, this area is supposedly fireproof. Jiraiya then braced to fight both of them as well as Mei, but Tsunade was already in a bad mood. "Take that, and that. Still think you can disturb my naps?" Tsunade had scared Jiraiya, Ao and Chojuro, and yet amazed Mei when Tsunade was able to crack some bones and heads with her bare fists. Where was she hiding all that strength? "Arg, Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu. Suiro no Jutsu." Kisame pulled some Mizu Bunshin to turn into prefect water spheres that had caused the Sannin and Kiri shinobi to back off. Since light can barely move through water as good as air, it made the perfect cover-up for their escape. The shinobi knew that the Akatsuki did because the water spheres did lost their shape and fell to the ground as normal and harmless water from a clogged-up drain, but that wasn't what the shinobi were interested in. It was that the hole in the wall with the outline covered in some black flames. Not one of them had ever seen them before, so they don't know what will happen if the flames had caught onto their clothes. Mei tried again and again to use her Suiton to put out the flames, but they never scoffed out. Jiraiya had to use some of his sealing techniques he called Fukahoin in order to store this flames. He had plans to study them as soon as he can and as safety as he could. "I must admit, Haim," Jiraiya said to face Tsunade, who was listening to her companion complain about her going on a destructive rampage which wasn't good for their debits. "I never expected to meet up with you again in a place like this and after what had happened. How are you?" While all this is going on, Naruto was in trouble and hurried down the corridor to find Sasuke and his girls. When Naruto finally got away from the Akatsuki, he had realized that he hadn't locked the door to his room with the girls, and he told them to stay there. The only thing that he had forgotten in that brink of the moment was that his girls don't want to be left out of the action. And the worst part was that Naruto saw Sasuke heading in that direction, and Naruto could smell the lust that he was emitting and was covered in Sakura's scent. "Damn it, Sasuke. I will not hold back at all when I find you. Let us go. Stop it. MPH. No, you bitches now belong to me because I have the power of a king. My power is much more important than any of the blondes, and you should have belonged to me because I am sure that he is just a cuckold bastard. Don't you see that he is still not here?" Sasuke taunted as he continued to molest the girls while they were still under his bodily paralysis genjutsu. They were only trying to see what the action outside in the hotel corridors was all about. That is until Sasuke appeared out of nowhere and kissed Sakura on the lips, but not before placing all them into a special genjutsu he had formed on the fry with his Sharingan. Now he can do anything he wanted with Ash's girls, including forcing them to be his wives. "Naruto-kun, where are you?" The girls were starting to lose hope as well because this genjutsu was made by a Sharingan, and those illusions can only be broken if the holder loses his concentration. When all seemed to be lost, Sasuke screamed, dropped to the ground to hold his only good arm, which was suddenly drenched in boiling water. But Sasuke ultimately released his prisoner's go to get even with him. "Bastard!" Sakura took the first turn and shattered some bones in the legs as well as a few in Sasuke's ribcage. "Molester!" Hinata used her Jukin to block all the Tenketsu in Sasuke's arms, making them not only broken but also numb. "Rapist! Finally, Haku took out her self-made kunai from her ice and hacked at Sasuke's face. The catch was the cuts were frozen all the way deep, which only made them hurt worse. They were going to repeat the process when a blur zoomed past them and picked up Sasuke by the hair rather painfully. "Sorry I am late. I have this hero complex too strong for my own good. Did you have fun in the end?" Naruto said, and the girl scowled but nodded anyways. In that case, Naruto trailed off and formed some kind of seal with his remaining hand. The girls then felt something wonderful, like being in a hot bath after working hard and exhausting labor in the winter cold. They looked down and realized that their skin was now pure all over again, and any trace of Sasuke ever touching them had vanished with their last skin. Similar to how Orochimaru sheds his skin like a snake, but done a lot prettier. "Now then, Sasuke," Naruto said to the boy, who was in disbelief and shock that his influence and work on the girls was erased right in front of his eyes. It was like Naruto had made it impossible for Sasuke to claim as his own bitches. "I think it is my turn to dish out some punishment of my own." Sasuke couldn't even whimper under the pain and stares that he just wasn't used to. But he did scream louder than Sakura did in the academy days when he felt something hot against the scald of his head and dripped down his face. "Futten, Toto no Rodi I." After hearing that before the boiling water settled over his ear, Sasuke screamed until his mouth started to boil. He couldn't even move his broken and numb arms to stop Naruto until his entire face was covered in the acidly heated water. Finally, Naruto released Sasuke and sent the boy to the ground, removing any boiling water from the latter's face. The girls got a good look on the barely alive Sasuke and were disgusted to see what his face was like now. It was like he was stung by an entire hive of hornets. His skin just swillied up so bad that it looked like the bumps were about to pop open. "Please." The shinobi then heard a low voice, like that of an elderly man on the brink of death from old age. "Please kill me." It was Sasuke who couldn't speak up with his mouth burned and his face all burned from the boiling water. He couldn't even open his eyes. "I have nothing left to live for," Sasuke muttered while coughing. "I have finally met my parents." That got even Naruto's attention. "They saw what I have done. Even if I killed my brother, my only family left, my clan, my own kind, will never be welcomed anywhere. Itachi will do what I couldn't," Sasuke had tried to say before breathes and coughs. "You all hate me, so please kill me. Even a shinobi will kill, because they will never let a comrade wither, in pain and misery, and on the brink of a slow death. I know you want to do it. We are shinobi." That was the last Sasuke ever said when Naruto closed his eyes and used his control over ice to form a sharp-pointed spear that he placed where Sasuke's heart was. But he wasn't the one who dug it into Sasuke's broken and scalded body. They all did, Naruto and the girls who all had reasons to hate Sasuke and shouldn't be sad about killing him. They were shinobi, and no matter how many nasty rumors are spread about them, shinobi still have a code of honor. They never let their prey suffer a slow and painful death. It will no different than being tyrants. When Naruto and the girls had completed the task of their first kill, the ice from the spear had completely covered the body, turning Sasuke into a human popsicle. What happened next was what Sasuke would have wanted. In darkness to be forgotten as merely the traitorous last Uchiha of Konoha, and now the village have finally lost one of their important clans. It is the fate of those who embrace darkness as their light and lose their will to keep walking until they reach the light at the end of the tunnel. "No, you bitches now belong to me because I have the power of a king. My power is much more important than any of the blondes, and you should have belonged to me because I am sure that he is just a cuckold bastard. Don't you see that he is still not here?" Sasuke taunted as he continued to molest the girls while they were still under his bodily paralysis genjutsu. They were only trying to see what the action outside in the hotel corridors was all about. That is until Sasuke appeared out of nowhere and kissed Sakura on the lips, but not before placing all them into a special genjutsu he had formed on the fry with his Sharingan. Now he can do anything he wanted with Ash's girls, including forcing them to be his wives. "Naruto-kun, where are you?" The girls were starting to lose hope as well because this genjutsu was made by a Sharingan and those illusions can only be broken if the holder loses his concentration. When all seemed to be lost, Sasuke screamed, dropped to the ground to hold his only good arm, which was suddenly drenched in boiling water. But Sasuke ultimately released his prisoner's go to get even with him. "Bastard!" Sakura took the first turn and shattered some bones in the legs as well as a few in Sasuke's ribcage. "Molester!" Hinata used her Jukin to block all the tenketsu in Sasuke's arms, making them not only broken but also numb. "Rapist!" Finally, Haku took out her self-made kunai from her ice and hacked at Sasuke's face. The catch was the cuts were frozen all the way deep, which only made them hurt worse. They were going to repeat the process when a blur zoomed past them and picked up Sasuke by the hair rather painfully. "Sorry I am late. I have this hero complex too strong for my own good. Did you have fun in the end?" Naruto said, and the girl scowled but nodded anyways. In that case, Naruto trailed off and formed some kind of seal with his remaining hand. The girls then felt something wonderful, like being in a hot bath after working hard and exhausting labor in the winter cold. They looked down and realized that their skin was now pure all over again, and any trace of Sasuke ever touching them had vanished with their last skin. Similar to how Orochimaru sheds his skin like a snake, but done a lot prettier. "Now then, Sasuke," Naruto said to the boy, who was in disbelief and shock that his influence and work on the girls was erased right in front of his eyes. It was like Naruto had made it impossible for Sasuke to claim as his own bitches. "I think it is my turn to dish out some punishment of my own." Sasuke couldn't even whimper under the pain and stares that he just wasn't used to. But he did scream louder than Sakura did in the academy days when he felt something hot against the scald of his head and dripped down his face. "Futten, Toto no Rodi I." After hearing that before the boiling water settled over his ear, Sasuke screamed until his mouth started to boil. He couldn't even move his broken and numb arms to stop Naruto until his entire face was covered in the acidly heated water. Finally, Naruto released Sasuke and sent the boy to the ground, removing any boiling water from the latter's face. The girls got a good look on the barely alive Sasuke and were disgusted to see what his face was like now. It was like he was stung by an entire hive of hornets. His skin just swellied up so bad that it looked like the bumps were about to pop open. "Please." The shinobi then heard a low voice, like that of an elderly man on the brink of death from old age. "Please kill me." It was Sasuke who couldn't speak up with his mouth burned and his face all burned from the boiling water. He couldn't even open his eyes. "I have nothing left to live for," Sasuke muttered while coughing. "I have finally met my parents." That got even Naruto's attention. "They saw what I have done. Even if I killed my brother, my only family left, my clan, my own kind, will never be welcomed anywhere. Itachi will do what I couldn't," Sasuke had tried to say before breathes and coughs. "You all hate me, so please kill me. Even a shinobi will kill, because they will never let a comrade wither, in pain and misery, and on the brink of a slow death. I know you want to do it. We are shinobi." That was the last Sasuke ever said when Naruto closed his eyes and used his control over ice to form a sharp-pointed spear that he placed where Sasuke's heart was. But he wasn't the one who dug it into Sasuke's broken and scalded body. They all did, Naruto and the girls, who all had reasons to hate Sasuke and shouldn't be sad about killing him. They were shinobi, and no matter how many nasty rumors are spread about them, shinobi still have a code of honor. They never let their prey suffer a slow and painful death. It will no different than being tyrants. When Naruto and the girls had completed the task of their first kill, the ice from the spear had completely covered the body, turning Sasuke into a human popsicle. What happened next was what Sasuke would have wanted. In darkness to be forgotten as merely the traitorous last Uchiha of Konoha, and now the village have finally lost one of their important clans. It is the fate of those who embrace darkness as their light and lose their will to keep walking until they reached the light at the end of the tunnel. After the Akatsuki fled and Sasuke, Uchiha was properly executed on his behalf. "It is so nice to meet you, Mei-san. I heard from one of your shinobi that you are the one who ended the bloodline massacres of Kiri. That is pretty cool," Naruto said while sitting on a bed in the same room that Mei had rented for a week the most. "The reason is for another time, so it is not important yet." "Kid, you shouldn't talk to Mizuki-sama so casually. She demands higher respect. What is wrong with rookies these days?" Ao, of course, was complaining like always, and Mei will just ignore him. "Thank you, Naruto-kun. I am happy to hear that my shinobi talk only the good things about me. I will hate to make a bad impression because everyone was talking the bad stuff about me," Mei said honestly, and Naruto nodded. "I don't see or hear any wrong with you, but please don't call me that. My girls are already debating on allowing Haku into the family, and you get the picture." Naruto tried to make his point across since he had a good idea on just how scary and strong Mei is if she was made Mizukage. They are not just good at making decisions and alliances, of course. "Of course, Naruto-san," Mei said after seeing Hinata, Sakura, and Haku clutch to Naruto like a lifeline and growl, like a pair of wolves telling anyone else to back off of what is theirs. "Anyway, I will like to train you while Tsunade Dano is waiting for Orochimaru." Naruto gave his full attention. I have heard on how you claim to invent Futon, Mei said, drifting off in order to make Naruto feel a little guild arrow in the heart. I want to learn on how to use your version of Futon. Like using actually boiling water? Isn't that just regular Suetun? Naruto said, and Mei giggled. Suetun is all about using water and water only. Your boiling water obviously had traces of Keton chakra as clear as day, Mei said before realizing what she said and covered her mouth. But it was a little too late because Naruto and the girls started to smirk in a sadistic way before facing Ao, who was still yelling at Chojuro and complaining about kids again. Ao? Shut up or we will kill you, the Konoha Shinobi all said, and that got Ao to lose his mouth. If you don't, then we will tell Konoha about that Byakugan in your empty eye socket. Ao nodded like a beaten puppy and went to sulk at the corner for humiliating himself in front of the Mizukage once again, and this time he had no idea how he did. Anyway, yes, you can confuse your Futon with Suetun, but trust me on this, Naruto-san, you have a lot to teach me and I can teach you how I use Futon. We are the only users of this bloodline in the world. There is no sense being enemies or rivals or any type of foes, Mei said, and Naruto thought it over. I agree with you, Mei-san, but how are we going to make sure your dual bloodline doesn't die? Naruto said, and Mei widened her eyes. How did he know that her Futon wasn't the only bloodline? This is the first time the two had met face to face. I hear a lot from rumors at home. You need to be more subtle the next time you do battle in a crowded space. People might accidentally sell you out to the wrong ears. Mei didn't get offended by that bold statement and instead lowered her head down in shame and guilt. Right, sorry about that, Naruto-san. Then she perked up in an instant and at a speed that was just about to snap her neck. So how about we begin? Jiraiya Dano is talking to Tsunade Dano, and even he said that he has something to teach you. That night, one might look at Naruto and think he is asleep since he was in such a position and breathing slowly. In reality, he was actually hiding the fact that the window was slightly ajar. It has to be because he is using yet another jutsu he had invented. Naruto called it the Kuroden Pamiko no Jutsu. It can work over any distance and even in a vacuum, but only when there is a good medium and barely anything solid to interfere with the signal. That is covered on how it is so black that light can't bounce off of the transmission, and even the most high-tech wiretapping equipment or jutsu CA pick it up. Right now there is a transmission occurring between Naruto and Kabuto about all this waiting. How is Orochimaru doing? Is he actually getting any better? No, Naruto-san. He is not, and he is growing more and more impatient. He plans to force Tsunade-sama into healing him and figure out the secret to cancel the jutsu you preformed on him in the Forest of Death. He still has the jutsu to do that and summon his familiar, so Orochimaru is still a threat. Then we will have to hurry up with our plans. Did you make sure that clone you told me about hasn't been programmed to serve Orochimaru yet? No, he doesn't have the strength to get out of bed without my aid. Right now it is too soon to program it. Good, because we need to retrieve it because the council wants an Uchiha back and a male heir at that for the next generation of Uchihas and their Sharingan. But let's see that this clone goes to the Shinobi Council instead of the civilians. Agreed. Kabuto out. Naruto out. And with that, the connection was severed to prevent any suspicion from arousing. But the very thing going through both Naruto's and Kabuto's heads was the memory of that very day they met up and decided that Orochimaru deserves to rubbed out because he stays in the way of both their goals and dreams. Flashback begins. It was between the Wave mission and the beginning of the Chunin exams. Naruto was taking a break from training with his girls and they went for some girl time while doing some shopping. But where Naruto was headed was where Sakura or Haku or even Hinata want to tag along. The Konoha prison and more specially Sasuke's cell. What are you doing here, Dobe? Come to rub that you have gotten the favor of the Hokage right into my face. Sasuke was, at the time, bounded by many chains to his hands and legs and even a blindfold to his eyes so that he can't even use his bloodline whenever he awaken it during his life imprisonment. No, Sasuke, that will be no different than you doing the same with the favor of the great civilian council. I am not going to be scum like you, Naruto said without fear, and Sasuke growled in anger. I just want to know why you tried to kill me. You were always ranting on how your first kill is going to be your brother, and that you didn't deserve to have your hands covered in someone else's blood. I knew that Hatake will tell on me with the report on how the mission went. That never would have happened if we just went back to the village, Sasuke shouted in his usual self-centered tone. Then Kakashi-sensei will have to tell the village that the great Sasuke Uchiha The rookie of the year to put the other rookies to shame had chickened out on a simple C rank. They don't care if it was turning to even an S rank. They don't want others outside the village to hear on how they couldn't even raise the shinobi properly. Which I agree, and the Hokage does too. Naruto said, and Sasuke just didn't take it really good. So you begged for that Haku bitch to join your team instead of me? She is an enemy and she even tried to kill me. Sasuke shouted and Naruto just shook his head. Was an enemy Sasuke, and she never was. She never hurt anyone without being ordered to do first, and besides she never tried to kill. Her ways were not like that, and you tried to kill a girl who was the same as you, the last of her clan anywhere. Naruto corrected Sasuke. And she already proven to be worthy of being a chunin by her skills and tactics alone. She is an excellent hunter unlike you. Shut up. No bitch is better than me or any Uchiha. I deserve to be a chunin than you or anyone else. That was the way it should be in this pathetic village. Sasuke tried and failed to grab at Naruto. The chains around his body held him back. It helped that they were made out of a special mineral that reacted to chakra in a similar way as of chakra paper. I agree, and that is why the Hokage is going to fix all that, but not to make a single clan the only important one. We have survived long enough without your clan, and that was without you to protect us. Naruto said until Sasuke started to act like an animal hit by a stunning needle and the latter fell into unconscious. Thank you, Uzumaki-san. Now visiting hours are over. That was when Naruto first met Kabuto, the medic in charge of Sasuke. For some reason, the Hokage's advisors placed Kabuto instead of the better and more experienced medics to the job. Okay, sir, but why are a chunin like me taking care of this special case? I have no idea. Kabuto said, but Naruto had to listen to lies before and stopped Kabuto with a hand on the shoulder. Hey, where are you taking me? Kabuto struggled until Naruto dragged him to a park that he knew to be empty at that nightly hour. I want you to tell the truth and not lies. I have heard enough to tell the difference. Naruto said, and before Kabuto could retort, he was gazed into eyes of a fox who meant business. So you work for a traitor that is cohorts with one of the Hokage's advisors? You are no different than a double agent, so why are you living this kind of life? I don't know how you figured that out, but don't judge me. You have no idea what it is like to not know something, and no matter how many tires you make, you never find the answer. Kabuto yelled in his defense, but then he felt Naruto placing his forehead on the former's. Hey, cut that out, you. Kabuto started to yell until he was flooded with memories. Memories of a life that seemed completely different, but to Kabuto, it was like he was yelling at the one boy who understood his pain of loneliness. How can you still be loyal to them? They held secrets from you and lied to you. I am going to pull a miracle that I was granted the power to perform them, and that is to prove that anyone change for the better when given the chance. And you are going to be the first one I am going to use my new powers on by forming an agreement with you. Naruto said without hesitation or falter that left Kabuto baffled. And for the next few weeks of training, Kabuto had found himself seeing Naruto on a regular basis since both Haku was Naruto's older sister and that she worked at the same hospital as him. They were both medic shinobi and genin with the skills of chunin, of course. Kabuto was now seeing that Naruto was slowly but surely getting along with the people who once hated him for their ignorance and tried to make his life miserable. All because they wanted someone to blame for their own misery of losing their loved ones. Maybe Naruto wasn't bluffing after all. I want to know something, and I want it now, Naruto-san. Kabuto said now that he was meeting up with Naruto again in the same park at the same time that night. Just how we're doing this and why I am feeling like this place is drawing me like a magnet? I am a genin. Not a therapist, but maybe is because you have finally found what you were actually looking for, but it is trapped in your subconscious. Naruto said, that is why I want to have an agreement with you about your master. He is standing in the way of happiness for all of us, and you need to be a better person than being a double agent all your life. Kabuto thought it over and did feel a little tired of hiding, spying and listening to rumors and worrying about being caught every time. Being a medical shinobi and a genin with Haku in this village had made him actually smile and feel happy. He hadn't felt that ever since hearing his adoptive mother say that she forgot him, and realizing that he was talking to a woman who truly never seen him before. She only looked like the woman who took care of him. Fine. I will be a double agent for the third time, but I will not report to my master anymore. I will only spy on him and report to you. Kabuto said he has taken chances longer than he had ever known. This no different. Is that fine with you? It is, and good luck. It is will be though to actually spy on a Sannin. Naruto said, and he vanished into the night, leaving Kabuto to wonder just how much Naruto had learned from looking at his life memories. Flashback ends. And I never regretted that very day, Naruto-san. You were right, you can perform miracles. All a miracle I want is to be with her again, and this time, as a real person than a puppet and a living suit of armor, waiting to be used even after years of nothing. Kabuto said, and he soon joined Orochimaru as his cover. It won't be long until Kabuto will go to the brighter light rather than the dimmer darkness. The next morning, Naruto met up with Mei for more training on his Futon. She explained that originally and before Naruto, Futon was all about steam since water vapor has a greater heat capacity than boiling water because it is past water's boiling point at 212 degrees Fahrenheit 100 degrees Celsius. So that was the basis of the Futon. Komu no Jutsu, using water vapor to burn organic substances and non-organic objects. Still, Naruto has a few himself to teach Mei because by using Futon Jutsu had shown water vapor has the weakness of being easily dissipated by wind, unlike his skill with boiling water. They decided to name the techniques that Naruto had described back at the Wave Bridge and just yesterday with the Akatsuki and Sasuke, in addition to the ones Naruto had already named as Futon. Goratusuki Onsen and Futon. Todo no Rodii. They chose Futon, Hadosapato Gekiju and Futon, Tsuchimweran Kazui respectfully. Futon, Hadosapato Gekiju was able to cover a large area, dousing everything in steaming water enough to burn and melt, but not as much as Mei's Futon. The other disadvantage was that Naruto was only able to use this technique where it was humid and damp with moisture thick in the air. And the Futon, Tsuchimweran Kazui, was a more concentrated technique that only covered a narrow space, but since it is so hot and concentrated, it can piece through almost anything. Mei was just shocked that someone of such a young age can be such a genius, and a sadist one at that. She loved to hear on how Naruto used the Futon, Todo no Rodii, as a torture technique. Mei promised to make this a well-feared technique once a clan of Futon users is born. In fact, she was going to make this a technique of both Kirigakure and Konohagakure, since Naruto never once published his techniques to his village. Not with all those power-hungry heads in the clouds with their high seats. And when Naruto was not with his girls or training with Mei, he was with Jiraiya as they complete Naruto's training with the Rasengan. The problem was that with all the chakra in the world, Naruto was barely able to use it without the aid of a Kage Bunshin, which takes too long, so that is why he never used it in the Chunin exam finals or the invasion of Konoha. Now all he has to do is improve his control until he can create a Rasengan without any time at all. It helped that Naruto had discovered the greatest secret of Kage Bunshin by accident. It helped that Naruto used his Kage Bunshin to do the chakra control exercises, which involved balancing a stack of leaves on one's forehead. As a means to push himself, Naruto created a pond with his Suiton to do the stacking of leaves while hanging from the bottom side of a tree branch and on the surface of a deep pond, deep because Jiraiya used his Doton to make an opening in the earth for the water. All this happened for a couple of days now, and Naruto was a very good teacher since Mei was able to use half of his own personal jutsu under that time, while the blonde himself was able to use the Futon, Komu no Jutsu, over a 200 square meters of distance max. With Jiraiya, Naruto was making very good progress and has gotten past the need for a Kage Bunshin for a Rasengan. For the rest of the week, Naruto was able to learn more about Futon from Mei and more about Hayaton from Haku. He also had successfully mastered the Rasengan after it only took 1 week to learn it. He even learned a couple of variants that Jiraiya was able to complete after learning the Rasengan himself. Jutsu like Otama Rasengan and Kudama Rasengan, which both demand a lot more chakra than a normal Rasengan. All this is so that when they face Orochimaru, it will be the last time. No more hunting him down when Orochimaru runs. No more searching when he hides. He is going to die for trying to hurt Konoha and those who called it home. He is going to pay for trying to kill Konoha's beloved leader, and he is going to pay for trying to hurt his only family. Naruto can no longer let him leave his sights or live past that inevitable day. Soon it was that day Tsunade is to meet up with Orochimaru and with her decision on whatever or not to heal him. In this case, Tsunade chose the opposite and tried to kill Orochimaru while pretending to heal him. Kabuto had to expose her and lure both Tsunade and Orochimaru to the opening where it will be safe and easy to fight. Hello, Kabuto. Orochimaru and Tsunade were the only ones shocked to see Naruto with the others at the same opening. It was like it took no time at all to find them. Gaki, why did you bring Shizune with you? She will get killed. Tsunade yelled, but Naruto never faltered under that scolding tone. Mei's bodyguards have their orders to see that Shizune is not killed, Naruto said, and Ao and Chijuro backed off around the raven-haired assistant to Tsunade in order to prove it. Kabuto now? Naruto yelled, and just before Orochimaru was going to bark in confusion, he did it in pain. Everyone was shocked to see Kabuto, with his hand covered in chakra for the Chikura no Mezu technique, slashed at Orochimaru's side, casing blood to leak out in huge amounts at a fast rate. Kabuto, how dare you betray me? Orochimaru withered in pain and tried in vain to stop the bleeding. The young medical shinobi just calmly walked over to Naruto's side. Sorry about that, Oro team, but Naruto had given me more purpose than you, and besides, he has gotten the prefect girl for me too. Kabuto said with a blush on his face, making everyone look in disbelief that Naruto was able to get Orochimaru's most loyal right hand mad, to betray him all for a girl? And just as everyone was mentally asking who this girl was, Haku walked up and snuggled with Kabuto. Looking back, Haku smiled. What? Who said that even girls can't have their own harem? And we are both doctors, so we are connected like magnets. And besides, Naruto already gave me permission as his only sister to date whoever I please. That was way too causal, socially in the midst of battle. Enough! Orochimaru never liked to be ignored, not matter the reason. Judging by how he was soaked in some kind of sick juice and at his feet was a lifelike suit looking just like him, complete with the wound Kabuto gave him, he used the snake-shedding skin. I will kill you after I finish off Jiraiya and Tsunade. Kuchiyos no Jutsu, Orochimaru shouted while sending a large amount of chakra into the special seal which spanned the ground under the palm of his right hand. After the three sages all summoned at once, three massive summons appeared. They too were known by all, and they were among the many factors that made the trio called the Sannin of Konoha. The summons were Gamabunta, Manda, and Katsuyu. Gamabunta is colored a dull, rusty red, but around his eyes and on his lips and chest are brighter red markings. Over his left eye, he received a scar at some point in the past. His tongue has a series of stud-like piercings on both the upper and lower side. He often wears a large blue happy vest that has the kanji of Ebi on the back, and always carries a massive dosu blade at his hip. He also carries a large kizaru pipe in his mouth. Manda is the largest snake in the world. He easily towered trees and large rock formations. He is colored purple, and had black rings running down intervals on his body. He had massive fangs, though they were arranged in a way similar to that of a constrictor snake instead of a viper or other venomous snake species, presumably carrying venom in them from the way they were designed, and green eyes. He also has 4 horn-like protrusions on his head. Katsuyu is an enormous entity related to that of a slug. Could easily considered to be as tall as most of Konoha's towers. It is predominantly white in color with 3 blue streaks that run vertically down the middle and side of its body from its head and tapering off at its tail. Its optical tentacles have a slight tint of gray to them, and it also has 2 sensory tentacles on either side of its mouth. Orochimaru, I told you not to summon me unless there is a good amount of sacrifices. Where are they? Manda shouted, not exactly the most loyal summon in the world, of course. Orochimaru was just glad that he can use his chakra or Manda will try to eat him. There is a town only several meters from here, and it is filled with humans who don't know you are here yet. They and all these foolish shinobi will make a very good meal, Manda, Orochimaru said, and the boss snake snorted. Whatever, as long as I can eat them or I will eat you. Your existence is worth almost as the people you are selling out to me, Manda said and started to get ready to fight 2 more boss summons and shinobi. I always wanted a lizard skin wallet, Gamabunta said as he readied his knife for this battle while Katsuyu said nothing. After a while, Gamabunta made the first strike with his dosu blade, but Manda used his natural flexibility to dodge and move around Gamabunta. But Katsuyu was able to intercept despite being a slug. Zeshi Nensen, Katsuyu unleashed a vomit's worth of acid that was able to melt some of Manda's scales and the rock where most of the acid landed onto. Manda retaliated by snuggling around Katsuyu and, like all snakes, tried to squeeze the slug to death. Instead, Katsuyu used its chakra abilities to split into smaller versions of itself and avoided being squeezed like a lemon. Gamabunta took the chance to take another strike at Manda, but this time, the snake submerged into the ground, so Gamabunta was on his guard. When the boss toad summon thought that Manda was trying to bite him from the rear, he hurried to stop him, but what he had stopped was Manda's tail. Manda's jaw was at the front all along, and with that ambush, Manda might just get the jump on Gamabunta until, go! Tsunade appeared out of nowhere and from atop Katsuyu to hit Manda in the cheek with her famous strength, sending the boss snake summon to the ground and Orochimaru along with him. But Manda was tougher than that and tried to eat Tsunade alive, but when he clamped his mouth closed, he felt something build up and eat away the inside of his mouth. Inside was a Kudama Rasengan. Orochimaru watched as his only battle ally toss and tumble around trying to put out some kind of fire in his mouth. Wow, that looked like it really hurt. Orochimaru heard a voice that made his body shiver up and his skin crawl. But when he turned, he was hit in the face pretty hard. By Naruto. You really are a snake, Oro team. You turn cowardly when you are left alone. And that was why you were only confident facing and trying to kill my team. Because a team of genin are nothing to a couple of Sannin or your old teacher Naruto taunted as he punched Orochimaru in the face multiple times, not matter how hard the snake Sannin tried to fight back. That is until Orochimaru forced his own neck to turn all of a sudden to try and chomp down on Naruto's fist. But instead Orochimaru felt something clamp down on his arms, breaking them and causing them to go limp. Don't leave yous out of the action, Narukuin. Orochimaru turned to see Naruto's girls also on top of Manda's head and held down Orochimaru by using his own arms as binding ropes. They somehow were able to sever several fibers and nerves until Orochimaru had found it impossible to shed his skin safety. Me neither. That was all Orochimaru heard until he felt his head start to ring and also feel a little low. Jiraiya had joined the fray and used his taijutsu strength to pound Orochimaru into Manda's head, causing the boss snake summon to do the same. As a result, Manda was left unable to protect himself from Gamabunta's Dosu knife. Nice one there, you brats. Gamabunta commented as he watched Manda's head fall to the ground until Katsuyu covered the cut with her acid. After all, after cutting off a snake's head, it is always best to cover up the wound to make sure it doesn't grow one back and become a hydra or something. No! Orochimaru knew that his world was crumbling around him ever since Naruto and his allies had been interfering directly and indirectly, but now it was clear that defeat, the first defeat than that man who had named them all the Sannin of Konoha. Orochimaru just could face that and pulled out some hidden strength from nowhere and tried to escape the hard way. But it was hard since he only had his legs and no arms to perform jutsu. There was all these boulders in the way and they were the only things that can hide this poor excuse for a human being now. But it was to no avail. Fuin Justu, Fuin Hashiman, Naruto said, appearing out of nowhere and hit Orochimaru in the abdomen. Tamen! That went another chakra gate and some of Orochimaru's speed. Next was the stomach, came on, finally the below the stomach, and Kaiaman. Everyone is shocked to see Orochimaru fall to the ground as if his arms and legs were severed and he was twitching like something inside was eating its way. Naruto braced for a fall after that last snake summon had disappeared along with most of Orochimaru's chakra reserves. Why Hanro no Hashiman is a kinjutsu? Because of the Hashiman Tanko no Jin. It leads to death by being cooked from the inside out. Naruto shouted at Orochimaru, who was barely alive with all but one of his Hashiman closed, leaving only the shimon untouched, yet. But what I am going to use on you is the complete reverse and yet as deadly to all shinobi and anyone else who are foolish to think without chakra we can still live on. Naruto said in a sadist tone that was enough to even scare Orochimaru himself. Please. Orochimaru was at the point that he could only speak of mercy for his life. I just wanted to know everything before I joined my parents. I just wanted to be the best I can so they can be the proudest parents they can ever be. I am sure that for any reason you became a traitor and tried to become immortal was your own, but I don't know any parents who will proud of a son who wants to avoid them by trying to outrun death. You should tell them everything if you do meet them wherever they are. Naruto lost all pity for Orochimaru, seeing him no different than Sasuke. The only thing that the blonde will feel is the need for a quick death to end it all there. Fuin Justu, Fuin Hashiman. Naruto pressed his thumb into where Orochimaru's heart is. Shimon. Just like that, the last of Orochimaru's chakra was contained and no longer supplied to his body. To compare that was to say all of Orochimaru's blood was removed from his body, shutting everything down including the heart. The traitorous snake Sannin, the one who thought he could become immortal and invisible by avoiding death, had his life scoffed out. It was ironic because the only things that mattered to Orochimaru other than immortality was chakra and jutsu, and it was a jutsu that involved chakra more than any other that brought the end of him. And not only that, but any legacy Orochimaru left on Earth will never be as traitorous or backstabbing or obsessed with power, since that side to Orochimaru had died along with the original body. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the real way to kill a snake, especially one named Orochimaru. No! Orochimaru knew that his world was crumbling around him ever since Naruto and his allies had been interfering directly and indirectly, but now it was clear that defeat, the first defeat than that man who had named them all the Sannin of Konoha. Orochimaru just could face that and pulled out some hidden strength from nowhere and tried to escape the hard way. But it was hard since he only had his legs and no arms to perform jutsu. There was all these boulders in the way, and they were the only things that can hide this poor excuse for a human being now. But it was to no avail. Fuin Justu, Fuin Hashiman, Naruto said, appearing out of nowhere and hit Orochimaru in the abdomen. Tamen! That went another chakra gate and some of Orochimaru's speed. Next was the stomach. Came on. Finally the below the stomach. And Kaiaman. Everyone is shocked to see Orochimaru fall to the ground as if his arms and legs were severed, and he was twitching like something inside was eating its way. Naruto braced for a fall after that last snake summon had disappeared along with most of Orochimaru's chakra reserves. Ui Hanro no Hashiman is a kinjutsu? Because of the Hashiman Tanko no Jin. It leads to death by being cooked from the inside out. Naruto shouted at Orochimaru, who was barely alive with all his all but one of his Hashiman closed, leaving only the shimon untouched, yet. But what I am going to use on you is the complete reverse and yet as deadly to all shinobi and anyone else who are foolish to think without chakra we can still live on. Naruto said in a sadist tone that was enough to even scare Orochimaru himself. Please. Orochimaru was at the point that he could only speak of mercy for his life. I just wanted to know everything before I joined my parents. I just wanted to be the best I can so they can be the proudest parents they can ever be. I am sure that for any reason you became a traitor and tried to become immortal was your own, but I don't know any parents who will proud of a son who wants to avoid them by trying to outrun death. You should tell them everything if you do meet them wherever they are. Naruto lost all pity for Orochimaru, seeing him no different than Sasuke. The only thing that the blonde will feel is the need for a quick death to end it all there. Fuin Justu, Fuin Hashiman. Naruto pressed his thumb into where Orochimaru's heart is. Shimon. Just like that, the last of Orochimaru's chakra was contained and no longer supplied to his body. To compare that was to say all of Orochimaru's blood was removed from his body, shutting everything down including the heart. The traitorous snake Sannin, the one who thought he could become immortal and invisible by avoiding death, had his life scoffed out. It was ironic because the only things that mattered to Orochimaru other than immortality was chakra and jutsu, and it was a jutsu that involved chakra more than any other that brought the end of him. And not only that, but any legacy Orochimaru left on Earth will never be as traitorous or backstabbing or obsessed with power, since that side to Orochimaru had died along with the original body. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the real way to kill a snake, especially one named Orochimaru. We're here, a fellow couple of guards heard when one of them was just about to win in their game of cards. When they turned they saw Naruto-kun. Slow down. There is no hurry. Naruto Uzumaki himself appeared to them, the nicknamed Eternal Gate Guards of Konoha, due to their seemingly never-ending duty as fellow Chunin, Kotetsu Hagane and Izumo Kamizuki. Hey guys. Nice to see you performing your duties. Naruto seemed to ignore that berate in order to make a verbal stab at the duo. Oh, they sure have been found out that they were playing cards rather than watching out for any visitors approaching the gates. At this rate, even small children laughing along can sneak past them unless the duo will improve their stance. Cut us some slack. Ever since that invasion, things have been either tense or too relaxed. Now no one will ever come here if they are going to be attacked because Orochimaru wanted to destroy us. Izumo shouted in retort while noticing the rest of the blonde's company were looking at them in amusement, but there was just a couple extra people in tow. Tsunade-sama, Shizen-san, you have returned after all these years. Kotetsu shouted before he went back into Positon while bashing the head of his partner for Izumo to stand up as well. You can be at ease now that I have going to be really generous once I receive my hat. Tsunade said, much to the confusion-turned excitement for the two Chunin who hurried to do protocol and then begged to be there when it happens. And by that, it was the moment that a fifth Hokage of Real this time was appointed, and this was also special since Hiruzen was there to pass on the hat to a much younger but still strong enough shinobi to take the mantle. Thank you everyone. I will do my best to protect this village and everyone who call it home. But I will have more work to do than that, given that I was shown a lot of spots on our records to clean up, and I will never try to cover them up. Instead, I will remake this village and see to that this will be the real Konoha when it was first born. Tsunade spoke to all the shinobi and civilians who were unsure about the last two statements, but they cheered anyways since they actually have one of the more well-loved and more positively famous of the three legendary Konoha Sannin. They just were blissfully ignorant of the eyes in the shadows looking on to Tsunade with anger and resentfulness. But to Naruto, who was up in the stands with his girls and Hiruzen, those eyes had hate, almost like a hardened animal who had been scarred by a certain prey that couldn't be captured or eaten either dead or alive. Who knows just what is going on inside their heads? After the big day, It was time for everyone to turn in, and while there were some moaning and groaning to be ignored in different parts of the village, a trio of chunin are in their own room. And they were going to be doing what is already happening, but to put all that action to shame unless their thirst for each other has anything to say about it. Lemon begins. "This is pretty hot and sexy, Naruto-kun," Sakura said while undressing along with Hinata, with Naruto watching in anticipation. Somehow, being stared at with such buggy eyes that only grew bigger when less and less clothing hide away what Sakura and Hinata reserved only for their special blonde. All this was making her even more horny and wanting Naruto even more as well. "But we are burning up and itchy all over, so can you please strip along, Naruto-kun?" Hinata moaned and was evidenced by the twitching and sweat on her skin. All of it led to her showing absolute begging for mercy from Naruto. He just shrugged and stood up. "I knew you girls will want this, so I improvised," the blonde said until he placed his hand in the most common hand seal, and the girls saw to their surprise that Naruto was never wearing clothes at all. It was all an illusion that was so thick that they seemed very real instead. Whatever the case, it only made the girls blush twice as hard as they saw everything full blast. They saw Naruto's slender and yet muscular figure that wasn't too thin or too bulky. His wild blonde hair showed that he was no boring, refined man who would break apart if one hair strand gets out of place. And most importantly, his cock. It was as big as it was during the Chunin exams, and the longer the girls gazed on it, they both noticed that it was twitching with visible nerve strand, showing that is a sign of this cock being as strong and thick as it is big. All this was too much to stop the girls from leaking their liquids down their legs, but they didn't notice nor cared at that point in this hot moment. They just rushed to get a good grip on this treasure of a man that can only be found in a girl's wet dream. It was rough to the touch and twitched and slightly grew when they started to rub on the cock. The girls looked no different than wild animals, hungering for this without a care for anything else. "Before we begin," Naruto said with difficulty, seeing the begging eyes of his girls once again, but he held on. "I have one last surprise I have been saving when we made it official." The girls could only hold their breath in when they saw that Naruto had somehow cloned his cock and placed it right next to the original. Hinata ultimately reached for it and was twice as excited to actually feel the second cock and got right to rubbing it. "Looks like you got the original cock all to yourself, Sakura-chan." Sakura didn't hear and didn't care about what cock she got because they were both identical and real. She just took the cock she is still gripping into her mouth to enjoy the taste, while Hinata picked up in only a second's timing. They just couldn't get enough out of Naruto's moans of pleasure to have his two girls suck his two cocks. Meanwhile, the taste of it was like the sweetest thing that was only sour to keep it from becoming an unhealthy addiction. After all, too much a good thing is always bad, like they all say. The girls, however, were getting a little sore in their necks as they keep failing to make Naruto come, even though they know his cock is filled with it, while both of them were still in their mouths. They looked up to him. "Please come, Naruto-kun. We won't hate you for it. We want to taste it. Please, Naruto-kun. We know it won't be gross." Hinata joined Sakura in their latest front to get their man to see they were in great desires. Naruto nodded, and when the girls engulfed his two cocks in their mouths, they felt it flood the inside of their mouths and down their throat. They struggled to swallow it and not choke, but to also enjoy the taste, in which they did. "Thank you, girls. I needed that, and now I am feeling like rewarding the two of you," Naruto said in a hot tone that got the girls to let open their mouths like dogs, showing the spare come dripping out. Despite this, Naruto gently pulled the girls by the chin closer to his proximity and kissed them, while they, by reflex, held onto Naruto to keep up the kissing session. Naruto positioned their pussies until they were just centimeters from being pierced with passion, pain, and yet pleasure. When the girls felt the tip of the cocks touching where they are the most sensitive and also where they itch, they tried to move their bodies so that they practically sit on the cocks. But Naruto playfully kept them at that position until he placed both of his hands firmly on the base of their backs. With one single push, the girls nearly lost it with all the pleasure they received when the cocks fit inside them like puzzle pieces. Naruto then decided to get bold, and while his girls were twitching in pain and pleasure, he sucked and fondled with their breasts. This had gotten their attention, and they got to their own pleasure routine by sending what little strength that had left in their nearly numb legs to lift themselves up and fall back down with the cocks stimulating their pussies. The girls were in complete paradise with their entire bodies being pleasured at the same time. But they still wanted more, so they did with all the focus they can muster. More Naruto and more. And when Naruto heard that through the sounds of flesh slabbing against one and another, he forced the girls onto the bed they were using for such occasions. There he used his superior stamina to the utter advantage to fuck Hinata and Sakura thrice as strong as they were able to do. It was beautiful and in its purest and wildest form of pleasure. Lemon ends. And it took a good hour for these three horny ninjas to reach their climax in their desire to make their experience as wonderful, powerful, and enjoyable as possible. Still, everyone in the village had forgotten about the moans and groans over an hour ago. Too bad they were finally getting themselves and their kids to bed without the latter asking what is going on. Meanwhile, they were now collapsed on their bed. Now they have wasted their physical energy to satisfy their lust and itchy private parts. It is so bad that they felt like they can't move until late morning. Still, that meant that none of them will have to leave the company of the others, which doesn't so bad after all. What Naruto seemed to not notice since he dozed off first was that both Hinata and Sakura felt like something was brewing in their stuffed wombs. It was like all that cum was bubbling like boiling water in a cooking pot. It didn't hurt, but they both noticed that while this feeling was happening, their bellies slightly grew bigger and inflated. Sakura and Hinata moved their tired bodies so that their heads were lying on Naruto's bare chest, not only for comfort but as a way to see if the other was feeling the same thing. When they did, the two girls suddenly smiled and moved their faces to kiss Naruto with passion, both at once. "Thank you, Naruto-kun, for everything you did for us and for the next most wonderful thing that only you can build. We will help you keep a happy life in return. We promise." Like a strange miracle, both of these girls spoke to their boyfriend in perfect unison. Regardless if Naruto actually heard that, he still smiled and clutched his girls closer, placing them where they feel the most comfortable, and they did for the rest of that night. But it was one to start a new life turn for sure. The very next day, Tsunade asked of the Shinobi Council to arrive in the Hokage Tower and without the other half of the Konoha Council. She made it clear that she wanted the Shinobi clan heads and not those of the civilian clans or any of the advisors that served Hiruzen during his 2 terms as Hokage. As for why, it was all to be explained in due time. "Thank you for coming, and I am glad that only the members of the Shinobi half of the Konoha Council have arrived like I asked," Tsunade announced, firmly in her Hokage seat with her robes showing that she is the one in charge. The attendants knew why she had to bring that last part of the announcement. The civilians were always trying to interfere with Shinobi business, like they automatically know what they are doing since they are, unfortunately, part of the village council. "So why is that only we are allowed to come to this meeting, Hokage-sama?" Inoichi, head of the Yamanaka clan and Ino's father, was always straight to the point. Inoichi had long ash-blonde hair reaching into his back, which he wore spiky on top and ending in a long ponytail, blue-green eyes, and strong facial features, which included a well-defined jawline. Inoichi was seen wearing the standard flak jacket over a black outfit, complete with handguards, forehead protector, and a sleeveless red haori. Perhaps it is something that is relevant to us, but something that the civilians will love to get their hands. Troublesome hags and bone bags who think they know shit. Shikaku, head of the Nara clan and Shikamaru's father, was always as well as the brightest one of the clan heads, while the laziest one. Shikaku had 2 scars on the right side of his face which were probably his most noticeable feature. Like his son, he had dark hair tied up into a spiky ponytail, dark eyes as well as a goatee. His ears were also pierced. Shikaku wore a meshed shirt underneath his flak jacket, a deerskin coat over that, and handguards. Tsunade smirked that some things will never change, but before she could speak another word, clapping filled the room and got everyone's attention. The shinobi saw that a familiar blonde came into the room with an amused expression on his face. "Very nice saying for such a lazy bag of bones you are yourself," Naruto said while everyone barely held in their laughter at the stab while Shikaku awkwardly chuckled. "But before I can say why I was called here today, I have to apologize to you, Tsum-sama, for all the trouble I caused for your clan during the Chunin exams," Naruto said while facing Tsum, head of Inuzuka clan and the unfortunate mother to Kiba. Tsum has an animalistic look similar to that of her son Kiba. She has long, spiky, untamed brown hair, vertical slit-like pupils, elongated canine teeth and nails. She also has the clan Fong markings on her cheeks, as well as markings over her eyes and a dark shade of purple lipstick. She wears the standard outfit of a Konoha shinobi consisting of flak jacket and a black suit underneath with the sleeves rolled up and bandages around her legs. Tsum also had a little respect in her facial expression. "At least you are willing to take responsibility, unlike the other people that got my son into trouble, which only made his behavior a lot worse," Tsum said. "At least that up finally got humbled enough that he doesn't bark so loud anymore. He won't even look at his own older sister with showing nothing but fear. I mean, come on, what is wrong, my daughter?" Tsum did talk rather loudly and everyone flinched. They knew Tsum to be a proud but loud woman who had to live like most kunoichi, told that women should never lead and instead follow men as real leaders like everyone else. And as a result, no one found any reason to argue or even speak another word until Naruto broke the silence with his own bravery. Thanks for the silence and getting everyone on edge. This will not sit well with all of you. Naruto then rolled down his sleeve to reveal what looked like the symbols that can be found in a storage scroll, tattooed into his skin. While some of them were wondering what this was for, everyone in the room saw that Naruto touched it with his two foremost fingers. Then a puff of smoke filled the space in front of him, but when the smoke cleared, it was a large tank, cylinder in shape that was big enough to fit someone of Naruto's age given the average size. And that is what can be said about whoever was inside. Sasuke-kun, Choza, head of the Amkimichi clan and Choji's father, said in disbelief. Choza is a tall, plump man with long, spiky red hair and purple markings on his cheeks, with the latter being a common trait in the Akimichi clan. He wears a samurai-like outfit which entails a black suit completed with armor that has the kanji for food on it. He also wears a rope belt, handguards, and instead of a forehead protector, a hachimaki tied around his head. At some point in time, he also wore a pair of silver, hooped earrings before passing them down to his son. He had heard that Sasuke was falling out of favor of Naruto and soon the rest of the general shinobi population within Konoha, but this is something he never personally expected. Thankfully, any of those thoughts were put to rest for good once Naruto cleared his throat. Yes and no. Naruto started and everyone knew that phrase was something that meant it was close and yet wrong. The reason this boy looks perfectly like the Uchiha team is because he was made off the DNA of that backstabbing Uchiha, and more importantly, it was a failsafe for Orochimaru so much if the original is out of his reach for any reason. When that happens, all that Snake team had to do was to train this clone into an obedient slave for him to take over in order to obtain the Sharingan. Thankfully, that will never happen. And why not? Orochimaru is still known as a Sannin for a reason. He was to be the top candidate for the Yondaime Hokage, had not been rejected due to his experiments on human lives. Shibi was the head of the Aburame clan and like the others, he was the father of the clan heir Shino. While Inoichi brought the point across and Shikaku was the one to figure out the oblivious before the subject revealed itself. Meanwhile, Shibi will be the head that is the coolest and rarely show emotion. Shibi, like all members of his clan, has his eyes obscured by dark glasses which feature a single tassel hanging down from one side. He has very spiky short black hair and a mustache. He typically wears a high-collared outfit, while carrying a gourd on his back that is used for holding more kikaichu. He also tends to keep his hands in his pockets a lot, another trait he and his son share. Sure, and that is why I had to make a hasty choice while in the forest of death, but in the end, it allowed me to use his ultimate weakness. Naruto answered. Now that Orochimaru has been undone by the two things he deserved more than anything else in the world in his blind search for immortality, there is nothing stopping us from keeping him. Jame Uchiha. 1. Before anyone in the room could comment on this development, the life-sized container hissed with steam that escaped when the glass, see-through cover opened to allow the young man to fall slightly forward and land on the ground of the council room. All the while was breathing heavily, like he finished a 100-mile marathon under 10 minutes until he started to catch his breath. Then the clone, wearing no more than skin tights that are usually used for patients that placed in liquid stasis, then got up without a hitch and opened his eyes to reveal an empty and lonely black eyes that also show very little surprise somehow. Then he moved his head to see the various people that were the Shinobi Council, staring him down like a new exhibit in a zoo. Where is Naruto Uzumaki? It was a large tank, cylinder in shape that was big enough to fit someone of Naruto's age given the average size. And that is what can be said about whoever was inside. Sasuke-kun, Choza, head of the Amkimichi clan and Choji's father, said in disbelief. Choza is a tall, plump man with long, spiky red hair and purple markings on his cheeks, with the latter being a common trait in the Akimichi clan. He wears a samurai-like outfit which entails a black suit completed with armor that has the kanji for food on it. He also wears a rope belt, handguards, and instead of a forehead protector, a hachimaki tied around his head. At some point in time, he also wore a pair of silver, hooped earrings before passing them down to his son. He had heard that Sasuke was falling out of favor of Naruto and soon the rest of the general shinobi population within Konoha, but this is something he never personally expected. Thankfully, any of those thoughts were put to rest for good once Naruto cleared his throat. Yes and no. Naruto started and everyone knew that phrase was something that meant it was close and yet wrong. The reason this boy looks perfectly like the Uchiha team is because he was made off the DNA of that backstabbing Uchiha, and more importantly, it was a failsafe for Orochimaru so much if the original is out of his reach for any reason. When that happens, all that Snake team had to do was to train this clone into an obedient slave for him to take over in order to obtain the Sharingan. Thankfully, that will never happen. And why not? Orochimaru is still known as a Sannin for a reason. He was to be the top candidate for the Yandame Hokage, had not been rejected due to his experiments on human lives. Shibi was the head of the Aburame clan, and like the others, he was the father of the clan heir Shino. While Inoichi brought the point across and Shikaku was the one to figure out the oblivious before the subject revealed itself. Meanwhile, Shibi will be the head that is the coolest and rarely show emotion. Shibi, like all members of his clan, has his eyes obscured by dark glasses which feature a single tassel hanging down from one side. He has very spiky short black hair and a mustache. He typically wears a high-collared outfit, while carrying a gourd on his back that is used for holding more kikaichu. He also tends to keep his hands in his pockets a lot, another trait he and his son share. Sure, and that is why I had to make a hasty choice while in the forest of death, but in the end, it allowed me to use his ultimate weakness. Naruto answered. Now that Orochimaru has been undone by the two things he deserved more than anything else in the world in his blind search for immortality, there is nothing stopping us from keeping him. Jame Uchiha. 1. Before anyone in the room could comment on this development, the life-sized container hissed with steam that escaped when the glass, see-through cover opened to allow the young man to fall slightly forward and land on the ground of the council room. All the while was breathing heavily, like he finished a 100-mile marathon under 10 minutes until he started to catch his breath. Then the clone, wearing no more than skin tights that are usually used for patients that placed in liquid stasis, then got up without a hitch and opened his eyes to reveal an empty and lonely black eyes that also show very little surprise somehow. Then he moved his head to see the various people that were the Shinobi Council, staring him down like a new exhibit in a zoo. Where is Naruto Uzumaki? Those words were to be followed by many for the years to come for the clone of one Sasuke Uchiha. Those words were that of anger, confusion, worry, sadness, loyalty, and yet never hate unlike the original. And for the long lifetime of Jame Uchiha, it always been that way until the supposed clone of Sasuke Uchiha died of natural causes. Something that blood and flesh clones were never expected of. But until then, it was nothing but war. War against a single threat. A terrorist organization named after the red, blood and death-stained clouds that filled the skies above various battlefields during the Second Shinobi War, the Akatsuki. And while there were no more than 10 members, this organization proved to be nearly unstoppable as it is composed entirely out of S-rank rogue ninjas that have enough power to take on a country and an army appears to take them. The members goes as follows. The first two were the ones that appeared when Naruto and his company were searching for Tsunade to be the next Hokage. Kisame Hashigaki and Itachi Uchiha. Kisame and Itachi were real threats for sure and even evaded capture and death multiple times during the war against all 5 shinobi villages in their shinobi alliance. But death can only be evaded and escaped for so long until she gets smarter and faster at every close encounter. Jame Uchiha had all the misfortune to keep running into Itachi until the former was finally able to kill the latter in an epic fight to the finish. Now that Itachi of the Uchiha was dead, Jame had only one last goal in mind. To recreate the Uchiha clan, one that he will by growing stronger for his friends and for the sake of making an Uchiha clan that will never be as arrogant and self-righteous as the previous. Kisame had to suffer another fate altogether. During the war, he was sent to finish off Naruto and Jame by his lord since the two had been a big thorn in their side. It took both Konoha Shinobi to even wound Kisame, but after the Samahata was forced to consume Naruto's chakra so much, the shark-like sword rebelled against Kisame in favor of Naruto as her new welder. That was how Kisame managed to lose but won't let himself being captured for information. In the most honorable way, he used the Suiro no Jutsu on himself while allowing his shark summons to feast on his flesh, preventing Naruto and Jame from any Akatsuki secrets. And yet despite betraying Kisame, Samahata still mourned over this brutal death. Next was Deidara and his partner, Sasori. Deidara had slanted blue eyes and very long blonde hair which he wore drawn into a half ponytail with the rest hanging down freely. The bang hanging over his left eye is what concealed his eye scope, signifying that he was a long-range fighter. But as shown in his fight with Sasuke, it was not permanently attached to his face. He also had mouths in each of the palms of his hands which were used for molding his clay, and under his cloak, he wore a utility belt with 2 bags where he carried all of his clay. Deidara wore a blue and gray kimono jacket with a fishnet undershirt inside and khaki pants with sandals and a belt-like pouch with a chain. His blonde hair was also tied into a lower ponytail and an IWA forehead protector. Deidara had one of his arms crushed by Gaara's sand, and the elbow of his other arm was blown into another dimension by Kakashi's Kamui. Deidara had his arms restored by having Kakuzu sew what was left of his arms with what appears to be a transplanted arm. His transplant was dark brown and had several wrinkles on it. Under his cloak, he wore a v-neck, sleeveless, midriff shirt with mesh armor underneath it along with pants, stirrups, and sandals. On his right index finger was his Akatsuki ring, which bore the kanji for blue or green, and was teal in color. He wore black nail polish on his fingers and toes. On the left side his chest he had a large, stitched-up mouth for setting off his self-destruct technique. And this is what killed this mad bomber, when he set out against Naruto in retaliation for the blonde stealing his kill with Orochimaru. Deidara proved to be a destructive foe with his bombs of various sizes and shapes, but Naruto ultimately forced Deidara to turn to his last resort that he called his ultimate art, his Shur, a technique that can cover a large area in which the shape of the explosion bears a resemblance to Taro Okamoto's Tower of the Sun, and it can destroy pretty much anything with one catch. Deidara himself was the bomb. Naruto watched on how this bomber was insane, taking what little clay the latter had and fed it to his formerly stitched-up mouth on his chest. But despite blowing himself up, Deidara never counted on Naruto escaping the blast via a summoned beast a good distance from the center of the explosion. Meanwhile, Sasori had wide grayish-brown eyes which he inherited from his mother, and short, mousy red hair which he inherited from his father. He was usually seen with a hazy, dreamy look to his appearance. After leaving Sunagakure, Sasori's hair became slightly messier, and wore his Akatsuki robe along with a purple Akatsuki ring on his left thumb that bears the kanji for jewel or sphere. He also wore teal nail polish on his fingernails. Even though Sasori still possessed his Sunagakure forehead protector that was slashed out in the middle, he kept it on his person instead of wearing it. Sasori's puppet body consisted of a pair of spinning claws attached to his lower back, a holder for 4 scrolls on his back, a stinger in the empty and open stomach cavity, a compartment in his right chest, and a core of living flesh in the left which had the kanji for scorpion painted on it. In his exposed state, Sasori's eyes would also be wide open in a maniacal way, as opposed to his normal calm-looking eyes. And speaking of which, that was exactly what Sasori also tried to use against his Konoha enemies when Sakura and Asuna Elder had cornered him when the organization tried to kill Gaara for the bijou inside the latter, who was the Kazekage at the time, 3 years after the death of Orochimaru. When the 2 Kunoichi had finished off his original puppet based off an ogre-like scorpion and his favorite Shinobi war puppet, modeled after a previous Kazekage, Sasori had to resort his own puppet body. He could have the advantage if the elder, named Chiyo, hadn't revealed that she brought her own secret weapon along, the Shirohige, Jiki Chikamatsu no Shu. This technique was said to have been made by the founding user of Shinobi puppets and even brought down a fortress for each of the 10 white puppets. Sasori still found a way to combat this unfortunate development with his own special technique that can only be done with his puppet body, the Akahige, Hayaki no Son. Sasori stated that while the Shirohige, Jiki Chikamatsu no Shu can bring down forts, his technique once destroyed an entire country. And that was a good claim since Sakura and Chiyo had trouble combating Sasori with his Akahige, Hayaki no Son even with Chiyo's Shirohige, Jiki Chikamatsu no Shu. In fact, both Kunoichi were brought on the brink of death because each of Sasori's puppets carried a deadly poison that can kill any living organism within a battle's time. Even though Sakura brought the cure from when Sasori faced against Gaara's older brother and won, it wasn't enough for the 2 of them. Still, the battle drew to a close when Sakura managed to stall Sasori long enough for Chiyo to deliver a finishing blow, or in this case, a finishing stab or 4 to the one thing organic about Sasori, his own heart. And in a twist of irony, it was done by the first 2 puppets that Sasori had ever made in his life, based of his dead parents, killed off in the 3rd Shinobi War. So Sasori died in the embrace of the 2 puppets that caused his beginnings as a puppet master and ultimately a criminal. Then there was Haiden and Kakuzu, known as the zombie duo for both being seemingly immortal and cannot be killed. Haiden has medium-length gray hair that was slicked back and distinctive purple eyes. He wore his Akatsuki cloak open with no shirt, only pants under it revealing his Yugakure forehead protector around his neck and Jashin amulet. He also wore dark green nail polish and his orange Akatsuki ring on his left index finger, which bears the kanji for 3. When not fighting, he was always seen with his triple-bladed scythe on his back. After his fight with Asuma, Haiden lost part of his left ear and Kakuzu stitched his neck after he was briefly decapitated. Kakuzu was a tan-skinned and tall man, easily standing as the second tallest member of Akatsuki. Noticeably, despite his advanced age, he still appears as a man well within his prime, retaining a very muscular build. He wore a white hood and a black mask, with his eyes being the only visible part of his face. Underneath, his mouth was stitched together at the edges, giving him a Glasgow smile, and he had long dark brown hair. His eyes have an unusual coloring: green irides, no pupils, and red sclerae. His clothing included the traditional Akatsuki cloak and the forehead protector of his home village with a scratch in the middle which symbolized that he was no longer loyal to it. He also wore brown nail polish, and his dark green Akatsuki ring with the kanji for North was placed on his left middle finger. His entire body was covered with various stitches and predominantly appeared to be sewn together. This was a result of the unique technique that he possessed, the jiangu. Haiden did indeed fight against Asuma because the latter wanted revenge for the death of one of his friends at the hands of the former. And it was all because that monk had a considerable bounty and the zombie duo do their business with bounty hunting. But Asuma was nearly killed by Haiden because he had no idea that his enemy was virtually immortal and used his strength, agility, and reflexes as well as a deadly ritual which took advantage of Haiden's immortality to inflict any damage to his victims by doing them to himself first. Asuma was spared when Naruto interrupted the ritual until the rest of the reinforcements arrived. Despite the duo escaping the first encounter with Naruto, they were faced off during the Akatsuki War. And while Naruto couldn't directly kill Haiden, the blonde was willing to compromise by using his futon to turn all of Haiden's blood and other internal bodily fluids to stone while forcing the lungs to fill up with boiling water that is maintained by the still beating heart so that Haiden will have chest pains 24/7 and powerless to stop it as a suitable way to finish him off. Kakuzu, however, was a much more impressive foe since Haiden was a one-trick pony with his immortality and ritual as the latter's only form of combat. With Jiangu, Kakuzu took everyone by surprise again when it was revealed that while the bounty hunter turned rogue Shinobi can die, he will only lose a heart and come back to life again when everyone least expects it. As a result, it was a nearly and troublesome battle that took a good 2 hours until Naruto decided to play by Kakuzu's rules and bring out a very deadly technique that Naruto had been working on for 3 years. The kinjutsu that only Naruto can use and is going to make the blonde infamous. The Raisin Shuriken technique, which is chakra in the shape and form of the Fuma-style shuriken. This energy is very deadly as it is moving so fast at a constant rate that it is more like poison than physical trauma. This means that Naruto can be affected by its effects while involved microscopic blades that inflict cutting damage on the cellular level. That was how Kakuzu was finished off. Not only did his body get destroyed, but his remaining hearts were killed in one few swoop, so the bounty hunter couldn't get up from that one. It became a kinjutsu once the body was given to Tsunade for study, and the Hokage gave the word for Kakashi to remind Naruto not to use it until the blonde can find a way to counteract the cost of losing his arm permeably due to raw and repeated exposure to the deadly technique. Then there was Zetsu, composed of both black Zetsu and white Zetsu. When together, the two Zetsu were easily distinguished by the two Venus flytrap-like extensions that emerged from their sides, enveloping their head and upper body as a shell, which they were able to open and close. Beneath these extensions, white Zetsu had short green hair and a single yellow eye. The right half of his body was covered by black Zetsu, whose leg was originally white Zetsu's own right leg. Under their Akatsuki cloak, they wore blue pants and sandals, and had both legs wrapped in bandages. Zetsu's green Akatsuki ring, which bore the kanji for sign of the boar, was worn on black Zetsu's little finger. Unlike black Zetsu, white Zetsu had human-like facial features and a proper eye, as well as unusually rounded teeth. When he was first created, his Venus flytrap-like protrusions were not fully formed, being white in color as well as sticking out all along the right side of his body. When the two have split apart, their plant-like extensions would separate and hang from the waists of both. Any clothing they were wearing, including their Akatsuki mantle, would split along with them, usually causing them to discard their torn clothing. When either of the halves emerged from the ground while split, their plant-like extensions would surround them in a circular formation. The two also demonstrated the ability to grow an additional leg, though deformed, from their white body mass to substitute for their missing half while split. What happened to them was unknown, as when the war started, they rarely appeared and even more rarely challenged the shinobi in combat. And with the rest of the members of the Akatsuki on their minds, the alliance had to forget about them for the time being. And that was because of what was next to come. Next were the leaders of the Akatsuki, Konan and Nagato. Konan was a relatively tall woman who had short, straight blue hair, gray eyes with lavender eyeshadow, and elaborate piercing. Konan's eyelashes are shown to be a diagonal line at the bottom corner of her eyes. She has worn a large light blue paper flower in her hair since she was a child. Her facial expression was usually neutral, though usually protested or looked worried when Nagato performed a technique that would debilitate him. She wore the Akatsuki cloak and her Akatsuki ring on her right middle finger, the kanji on it meaning white. She also wore orange nail polish. Although she never removed her Akatsuki mantle, it was revealed that underneath it she wore a revealing navy blue robe with a large hemline on the front and exposed her arms, her back, the lateral part of her breast, and her belly, with her navel being surrounded by 4 more piercings. Instead of the standard sandals and leg warmers, she wore a pair of blue pants that also functioned as her shoes, with white high heels, inverting the organization's standard color scheme. Nagato had pale white skin with straight red hair, a sign of his Uzumaki heritage. Linking with the Geto Mazo left a number of black receivers embedded in his back and caused his body to become very emaciated, limiting his mobility. For this reason, he spends most of his adult life in a mechanical walker from which he controls the 6 paths of pain. He likewise does not personally wear any of the typical Akatsuki clothing, having his paths wear it instead. Nagato was also known as simply Pain to his fellow members, with the expectation being Konan. He established himself a god of pain and justice that will bring peace to warring nations. But while he did manage to almost kill Jiraiya and Amigakure, if the Toad Sage didn't have one last trick up his sleeve, Nagato tried to destroy the village under the guise of wanting Naruto. He did this as an excuse to finish off the village that he had hated from the Second Shinobi War, for killing his parents and forcing his best friend to die as well. Instead, he only managed to devastate the area in which Konoha has settled in, while barley even scratched the population of Konoha. Naruto then appeared in the company of representatives from the Beast Summon clan that taught him how to take the power and energy from nature itself to make him a much stronger shinobi. He then fought against Nagato's paths, each dealt in a way that they can't get up from, until Naruto was able to find the puppet master behind the Pain Rakudo no Jutsu. Konan was still by Nagato's side as Naruto talked his fellow Uzumaki down to see that the blonde is his legacy, what he truly stands for, and ultimately what Nagato has to do to retaliate for his sins. Use a jutsu that use up what little energy he had in his withered old body. The Geto Rinne Tensei no Jutsu. It summoned the head of what Nagato called the king of the underworld, in order to restore the bodies of those who died in his invasion and bring them back to life. After that was done, the technique left Nagato with no chakra left and he had to die from chakra exhaustion right on the spot. Konan was offered a place where she will no longer have to go back to the Akatsuki by Naruto, but she refused because she couldn't possibly live in the village after she set everyone up at a bomber and a terrorist who had been following another one blindly. Naruto just told her that he had a feeling that she was killed off if Konan tried to return to Amigakure. And she nearly was when a figure tried to do so and loot the 2 dead bodies of her best friends until she was able to escape. And then there was Tobi, the most mysterious and least taken member of them all during the start of the war. Tobi wears a black long-sleeve top that covered his neck and chin, a pair of black gloves, a pair of dark-colored pants, a long green scarf, and standard sandals and white stirrups. On his waist, he wears a thick black belt with armor-like metal plates attached to it, and similar plates on his upper arms. Tobi had blue nail polish on his fingers and toes. He continues to wear this outfit under his Akatsuki cloak after he becomes a member, and also wears a purple ring, which bears the kanji for jewel or sphere, on his left thumb. He was to replace Sasori's place since the puppet master was the first one of the Akatsuki to fall. And since Deidara is usually paired off with Sasori, Tobi was the former's new partner. And Tobi was there to see Jime fight and see that Deidara blew himself up in order to kill the Uchiha. Tobi was also the one who sought to kill Konan and grave rob the body of Nagato if the latter hadn't received Naruto's warning. That meant Tobi failed to kill Konan, but he still made off with Nagato's eyes, which were the legendary eyes like the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan and the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan. The Rinnegan grants the user the power over the 5 basic chakra natures, able to use 6 deadly abilities that are labeled as paths of pain and even control life and death. No doubt the last power was what Tobi really was after. With the Rinnegan, Tobi was able to bring his plan that he called Tsukinomi Kikaku into friction. With the help of the Bijou chakra that he had stolen and collected for every single one that ever existed, Tobi planned to bring back the source of the 9 Bijou, the Jubi. And with the help of the Jubi, Tobi was going to bring what is known as Mugen Tsukuyami in order to create a much better world. When the Alliance found out what the Akatsuki War was all about, they set out to stop Tobi. But when they tried to bring down him and his forces of unlimited white Zetsu, the Shinobi Alliance found themselves facing another great threat, the rogue founder of Konoha, Madara Uchiha. Madara was a fair-skinned man with spiky, black hair that had a slight blue tint to it. Madara let his hair grow to waist length with shoulder-length bangs framing the sides of his face, covering most of his right eye. Although still relatively young, more prominent creases had developed under each of his eyes. At times, he wore crimson armor with numerous metal plates, forming protective guards along his chest, waist, shoulders, and thighs. Most of the time, however, he continued wearing the same basic Uchiha outfit. A blue high-collared, long sleeve mantle that splits down the lower half and a simple, light brown obi and a belt. During battle, he often carried an orange-brown gunbai which had a long black chain running up it. Madara had somehow got brought back from the dead and now is strong enough to go with the Tsuki-no-mi Kikaku as well. With Tobi by his side, Madara revealed that he will use Mugen Tsukuyomi to create his own version of a better world. A world where the strong truly exist and exist alone. But in yet another twist, the identity of Tobi was revealed to be another Uchiha and not just any other Uchiha. It was Obito Uchiha, one of Kakashi's old teammates who supposedly have perished in the Third Shinobi War. He revealed that he was seeing to that the Akatsuki turn into a terrorist organization in order to make a world where no one should suffer again. But in reality, Obito was following the word of an old man who claimed to be Madara after witnessing his beloved get killed by Kakashi, whom Obito once called brother. It took a lot of sweat and blood and words, and even Obito becoming the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi in order for Naruto to prove to the fallen Uchiha that making a false world isn't what the real Obito will do, and neither will his beloved will want the real Obito to do. So Obito decided to help in order to make up for all the suffering, hatred, and blood spilled because of his foolish desire to follow the word of an old man who said he will bring back Obito's love. And yet despite being able to get Obito to help, defeating Madara was like impossible when the undead founder took the power of the Kyubi's Jinchuriki in order to be able to kill the entire Shinobi Alliance and cast Mugen Tsukuyomi on every single living being on the face of the planet. Jimei and Team 7 were still humanity's last hope, so they tried to get to Madara only for Haku and Sakura to be disabled while Jimei and Naruto were on the verge of death. Madara left the Shinobi to tend to their saviors until he can find a way to obtain all of the essence of the Shinju or Jubi's true form. That was the only way for Madara to cast Mugen Tsukuyomi. When it seemed that Jimei and Naruto were going to die in the hands of their comrades, two of them managed to perform a miracle which caused someone from a time long forgotten had come to grant them both the power that had defeated the Kyubi when it first appeared to threaten the entire elemental continent. The power of the very first shinobi in human history, Hagoromo Otsutsuki aka the Rakudo Sannin aka the Shinobi no Kami aka the Kono Yo no Kyusishu. And with the power over existence in the physical world and over immaterial energy in the spirit world, the two shinobi challenged Madara for one last time. But Madara fled when he decided that he wasted enough time and Jimei and Naruto couldn't do a thing when Madara completed Mugen Tsukuyomi, trapping all but a few in a strange illusion that forces them to be in a helpless and eternal sleep. Jimei and Naruto were able to avoid the glaze while the former prevented Kakashi, Sakura, and Hinata from the light that the moon brought, turning night to day. Once the light passed, the remaining free shinobi ready to fight Madara again until another shocking twist made their day. Black Zetsu betrayed Madara. Black Zetsu said that when Madara claimed to have created him, the former claimed to be made by Kaguya Otsutsuki, the mother of Hagoromo and a princess of an extinct kingdom, instead. Black Zetsu said that he had been in existence longer than even Madara has, looking over the course of human and shinobi history to make sure that they will eventually cause the return of Kaguya from her prison in the moon by her sons, Hagoromo and his forgotten brother Hamura. The restless shinobi could only watch in horror as Madara suddenly transformed when Black Zetsu stabbed in the back. Madara seemed to swell up, like he was going to blow up, but instead he contorted and altered into that of another person entirely. Kaguya Otsutsuki herself. A woman in possession of very delicate facial features. Kaguya also had extremely long, sweeping white hair that touched the ground. Most noticeable were two brown horns which stuck out from her head, appendages inherited by both her sons. Kaguya possessed the Byakugan, and also had a third eye on the center of her forehead that's eyelids parted vertically. Her eyebrows were cut very short, a symbol of nobility, and she wore a dark shade of lipstick on her lips and a dark shade of nail polish on her long fingernails. She wore the transitional high-collared Haim kimono, which was adorned with intricate lines that are gold and purple and tomo, running down the center and edges of the gown. She is also pale-skinned. But the worst part of Kaguya was that both Naruto and Jimei could agree that her chakra levels topped that of the Kyubi. But before they could even try to get ready for Kaguya, they were suddenly transported to another place entirely. A world of lava, brimstone and a cast in the background. Naruto was able to catch Jime since the blonde's new power allows him to fly, while Kakashi was able to save himself and the girls with the help of a spare scroll for the moment. Obito was hanging too via a kunai in his numb hand. They had to move because the lava's heat was burning the scroll used for a rope. Jime revealed to have a contact with the Hawk Summon clan, which allowed them to avoid the lava for now, but they still had to face against Kaguya, who seemed to want to kill them while muttering something about her children and her playground. Naruto allowed Jime to fall back and help the others while he tried to catch up with Kaguya's storm of giant chakra fists with his own. But Kaguya had brought them to another world entirely, and she could do it again. And Kaguya did. To a world of ice, to a world of endless deserts, to a world with an ocean of acid, until they finally appeared in a world with a surface of pyramids, but also where the gravity is almost 10 times that of the elemental continent. There, it was like they were at their weakest since the gravity made it nigh impossible to dodge and attack properly. That was where Obito, unfortunately, gave his life to block a very deadly technique that Kaguya had been using in her little game of cat and mouse chase with Naruto's large mass of Kage Bunshin. This sacrifice made and one last gift given to Kakashi by Obito was all they need to finally bring down Kaguya, and when Sakura and Hinata dealt a sneak attack, Naruto and Jime were able to move in to seal her away once again. In a recently created satellite that will be called the Moon, just like in ages long ago. But while everyone was getting to regroup, Jime said that Naruto had one last thing to do. Find Black Zetsu and fulfill his last wish that he had spent countless generations waiting and wasted for. Let's just say that since Black Zetsu had been the cause of countless people to die, and all because he wanted his creator, his mother, back to him, and the way Naruto did it, Black Zetsu will never without Kaguya ever again. After the war ended and the cause for countless lives lost and countless years of suffering had been expelled from the elemental nations, it was time for those war heroes to try and fix what the war broke for them and hopefully rebuild what the war had destroyed. And that included buildings, bonds, and broken hearts. But on the other hand, most of the war survivors wanted to try and make families as people to protect for the rest of their lives. And after several years, dreams were finally completed and families were eventually constructed. Jime Uchiha did have to enroll in the CRA or clan restoration art, in which a single male heir have to web and mate with multiple women to give a nigh-extinct clan a jumpstart. It was just forgotten that it also works for single female heirs to near-extinct clans. Since he was raised to be reluctant and only agreeing to the CRA because it was necessary for his clan, Jime made his own conditions. 1. That Ino Yamanaka will be the first girl in the harem, and thus has the privilege of being the first married and the first to give birth to Jime's heirs. Also that Ino is the head of the large family, so she is in charge of the multiple women that the village throws in the pile, whatever it sparks a fire or not. 2. No one outside the harem will decide on the girls without Jime's consent. And 3. Any children born in this harem will be under the responsibility of both Jime and Ino Uchiha alone. With those 3 conditions met, the Uchiha did indeed get reborn with its fresh set of children already in stock and more on the way. As for Naruto and the rest of the Konoha 12, they were busy themselves. Naruto had been seen a war hero who had his own little fan club come at him, while he became one of the village's strongest jonin under the rule of the Rokudaime Hokage, Kakashi Hatake. Still, Naruto had managed to make time for his 2 girls that were his own big family, as they already gave birth during the war, and thankfully, no harm came to Naruto's children off the front lines. Naruto was grateful for becoming a father, and his children even helped him out by playfully fighting away any fangirl who tried to mess with their father, even on the way to the grocery stores. Ino was busy managing the large family, while Jime made sure that her own pregnancy was as comfortable as possible when he takes time off his training to become a clan head. Shikamaru had found himself the advisor to not only the Rokudaime Hokage and the Nanadaime Hokage, but also husband to Temari as part of a treaty between Konoha and Suna, since the 2 villages helped each other the most during the Akatsuki War. Also, Shikamaru became the father to a blonde who is both a lazy boy and an ambitious thinker. Choji found himself in shoes similar to Shikamaru, but being married to Karui of Kumogakure was a very confusing matchup, despite the 2 of them being parents to a daughter who has their best characteristics. Haku married Kabuto after remaining loyal to the latter during his probation, and they gave birth to twins who always expressed their desire to learn about medicine and their love for winter snow. Shino was uninterested in dating and marriage, so he simply took his father's place as head of the Aburame clan in his childhood dream to simply collect new specimens of insects never seen before and overlook the growth of the next generation of genin. It's just that he never counted on being a very monotonic teacher that not a single student took him seriously. Kiba was allowed to train and rise in the ranks of a shinobi, but he hasn't had much luck with the girls, with his mother and sister breathing down his neck. He was spending most of his time grumbling on whatever to thank Naruto for letting him stay a shinobi or despise him for the hell-like life that started years ago. Too bad that Akamaru had to age his worth in dog years, so he just spends his time in one place surrounded by pups that come to him, talking about what is going on in the world. Tenten took over her father's weapons store, which wasn't doing so well since it was peace times. Tenten just was glad that Naruto made it clear that peace isn't something to be left untouched but to preserve and protect. So occasionally, she gets customers to maintain their tools and give stock to the genin. Lee spends his days like usual training non-stop. But he seemed to have a son in Metal Lee, and yet none of them will ever tell anyone about the mother. Not even Naruto knows, which he dropped a long time ago after seeing the duo torture him with their hugging in the sunset. Just when is that nightmare going to go extinct? Neji simply wanted to be the one to look after the only cousin he had left, Hanabi Hyuga, while being Naruto's bodyguard, since the blonde pretty much was the cause for this clear and positive turn in his life. Then there was the Jonin who fought in the war as well. Kakashi became the Rokudaime Hokage until he eventually stepped down into retirement, sticking around for the same reason that Hiruzen is, to be there when the next generation needs their wisdom the most. Asuma had managed to stay with Kurenai until their daughter was born and grew into a kunoichi worthy to accompany the Nanadeime Hokage to any Gakage meetings. Guy had to take an early retirement since a permanent foot injury had ruined his career. Every other Jonin are either still on duty or retired due to the end of the war. Meanwhile, all the former Jinchuriki retrieved their bijou upon request, including the oldest named Killer Bee, who spends his time debating with his bijou on whether to visit Naruto or not. Bee was the latest teacher who was able to complete Naruto's Jinchuriki training, and the only Jinchuriki to last uncaptured the most other than the blonde himself. As for the remaining Jinchuriki, Naruto hadn't heard a single word from any other of them since he is forbidden to ask the other villages about them. Finally, the previous generation of the Gakage spend their days in retirement and going to reunions arranged by a very frail Inoki, the former Tsuchikage who turned over his title to his prodigious granddaughter, Kuratsuchi. He refused to admit that he was getting old, but his little body just couldn't even handle going outside, so he just stays in his single chair for the remainder of his days. Meanwhile, the other members of the previous Gakage barely changed at all, and they usually pass the time while rethinking on their younger days and still are worried on whatever they left their village in capable hands. By the time that his first two children had become genin, Naruto was there to congratulate them himself, as the Nanadeime Hokage appointed when Kakashi felt that the blonde had finally earned his worth to take the mantle. It was a wonderful day in the village, and Naruto promised to not only look after his family but also the entire village as Hokage, encouraging equality and treating others fairly by leaving no one high in praise or left in the dust like himself and a lot of others that Naruto knew in his lifetime. And he knew just what happens when feelings like those are left unchecked. They can boil over or freeze over with fire and wind.